Hello everybody, happy Thursday. How's it going? Welcome to TheoryCraft episode 32. Is that where we are? Yeah, episode 32, right? We're on episode 32, so I'm just gonna move myself over just a little bit. Oh yeah, look at that. Wait for it. What if I do this? Oh, you see some reality. Oh, let's stay over there then. That's alright. How you guys doing? Good to see everybody. So what's happening? Today is Undead Day. Which is pretty exciting. I feel like Undead Day, for some reason, it feels like the episode we've had the least of all so far. Even though I know that's not true. So how many Undead episodes have we had so far? Let me look it up. Let me go to, can I find TheoryCraft playlist? So I know that we've had the CryptLord episode. We had Happy versus Focus. We had Keeper Fairy Dragons, right? We had comparing Happy to 120 in Undead versus Night Elf. There's 4. We had, what else did we have? There was a 5th one as well. Can I find the playlist? Can I find the playlist on our YouTube? Can I do it? I can do it. Let's see. Yep, so the first one was how Happy deals with Night Elf Mass Air. All right. And then the next one was the CryptLord, 3 different CryptLord strategies versus human. And then it was Happy and 120 versus Elf, contrasting the two of them. And then it was just the last episode. So there has been 4 episodes. I remembered all of them. Incredible. So that's what we've covered so far for Undead. And it felt like, for some reason to me, like we had done a lot of Undead versus Elf. Maybe because we've also done it from the Elf's perspective in one episode, which was the one Night Elf episode where we did Foggy versus Happy as well. So that's maybe why it feels that way. But I figured we'd do a little bit of a different matchup today. Not too different, though. One we've covered once, but a different side of it. So today we're going to be doing Undead versus Human, which is fun for Undead players most of the time. Human players tend to say at least they don't enjoy it, even though maybe some of them do. And recently, it's kind of been tilted the other way. Even Mr. Remo Demo Man himself, who actually was the person, shout out Remo Demo, recommended me I do this strategy today. He said yesterday, I think it's starting to get a little bit human favored. And many Undeads have been saying that. So it's historically always been Undeads have been dominant in the matchup. Human players have disliked it. Human players still are of that opinion. But now Undeads are starting to become of the same opinion, that it's very difficult to beat human in a standard game. What do I mean by standard game? I mean just Death Knight, Lich, immediate tier 3 tech on one base, eventually getting either a Pit Lord or a Dark Ranger, and pushing the expansion with an Orb, Tri-Hero, maybe a single Destroyer, 2 Destroyers. That's the standard play. And a lot of Undead players have been saying, it's starting to get a little bit human favored recently. Remo Demo's been saying that. We've heard Insup say that a lot. I'm sure, many of the top Undeads have been saying that, and many smart Undeads as well. So today, I was going to cover just standard. I'm just going to be like, let's just take a look at standard Undead versus human. But I figured maybe, since we're not all happy, in fact, everyone other than Happy is not happy, I figured we do something different that is a very strong, viable strategy, viable at the top level, but it's not as execution-based, shall we say, micro-heavy, mechanically heavy, as maybe the very most standard style, which Undeads have been saying that they've struggled with recently. So that was sort of the genesis of today's episode, and it was recommended to me by Mr. Remo Demo Man. So shout out Remo Demo. Thank you for the idea for the episode. Appreciate you. Hey, I am very happy. Not the happy, but happy. Good. I'm glad. So last episode was not last week, but the week before that, we did Lyn versus Human, an updated look at that. I was pretty happy to do that, and we're going to need a lot of those. We're always going to need the little refreshers, right? We're always going to need to, hey, let's just update this episode that I did 2 months ago because the meta's changed. What's up, Art of Warcraft? How you doing? let's just do an updated version of it, right? We're gonna do that a whole bunch, and that's what's gonna keep this show going. Is doing, because eventually, it's like, oh, I've done every matchup, I've done the 3 standard strategies in every matchup. What am I gonna do? Cheese builds, so we can do updated looks at things periodically. And then last week we didn't have an episode because didn't have time to make one. Yeah, I don't want to sacrifice quality for quantity if I can avoid it. So I just canceled last week. Might happen sometimes, but you ever feel like you're just always sort of catching up and you can never catch up? It's like a fever dream that never stops. That's what happened. So I just canceled last week, and here we are with the episode we would have had, but better than it would have been. I can guarantee that almost. Better replays, at least. Are you going to do a level 10 Tinker Rush strategy? See, that's where we're sort of getting to as we approach 40 episodes. And, my goal sort of with this show was to do 50 episodes at the start. I thought, okay, maybe if I could do 50 episodes, I'll be pretty happy with the amount of content I've been able to do. Right? So that is the goal, but by the time we reach 50, we'll see where we're at, right? Let's put the Warcraft music on. There we go. How is that too loud? Let me know. Maybe I'll turn it down a little bit. How about a little bit? Yeah, why not down to like there? Episode 50, interview with the Emperor. A possibility, but not a likely one. Not a likely one. So that was last episode, and that was what happened last week. Next week, we are starting DreamHack. So there's a schedule conflict. And of course, even though we're going to be on separate channels, as we always are for DreamHack, I wouldn't want to stream over top of the beautiful games of DreamHack, and I wouldn't want to, make a conflict when there doesn't have to be one. So we're not going to have an episode next week like we always do when DreamHack is on, because I want to watch the games. You guys want to watch the games. No one wants to watch me talk about Warcraft when there's beautiful Warcraft being played. But, I can almost guarantee you that the episodes after DreamHack are going to be based around games that we see in DreamHack, whether it be for Asia, Europe, or Americas. Maybe Cruncher does something really cool, against one of his opponents, something like that. So that's going to be that. So no episode next week, but probably the week after that, if there's no schedule conflicts. Even though DreamHack's still on, there might not be. So I'll let you guys know. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter, Back to Warcraft on Twitter, at Back to Warcraft. You can get all the updates and all that. Okay. Is that? I think that's that. Can we move on to today's episode? Are there any questions? Any questions before I introduce you to today's episode? Cheese builds sound delicious, though. We could definitely do some cheese builds. That would be a great episode. What I also want to do for an episode in the future, in the more, soon, pretty soon, is because we're getting some new maps, Shallow Grave, maybe I'll just do, an episode going over the new maps. I guess I could have done that in Tidehunters and Autumn Leaves, but I sort of missed the boat on that one. But maybe, I could do an episode just on, Shallow Grave, creep routes with all 4 races or something like that. Thoughts on new map? I have never played it. Because I'm sort of... When I play ladder in 1v1, I just play the standard tournament map pool. That's all I do. Right? That's all I do. I have the 7 maps in the standard map pool, and that's what I queue every single time. So I haven't played it at all yet, but I'll have to unveto it now when I do play ladder. But I have watched some games. We've done some analysis on our viewer replay submission episodes. And I've said before analyzing those replays, look, I don't know the map at all. But I'll see if we can improve on anything. I like it. And I think the changes they've made are really, really good. There's perhaps a couple of issues. I always think it's a little bit weird when there's a red camp that is your second expansion, because it's like, okay, when are we ever really going to be able to take that? I suppose Last Refuge is like that. Is there other maps like that? Concealed Hill, but Concealed Hill is a very cool dynamic in that red camp. That's sort of what makes the map. Also, the shops are kind of out of the way, which as an orc player can feel kind of bad at times. When the shop is really out of the way, you feel like that on Autumn Leaves as well. But I'll have to play games on it because it's hard for me to really touch on it. I know the map, what the creeps, what the items are, stuff like that, but I haven't actually got the feeling of what it's like to play on the map. yeah, I could definitely do some episodes on the maps, and I would just spend like just a week going over it, and then I would show you guys sort of what I find. Oh, this is a cool Ancient of War positioning. Oh, maybe you can militia creep this. Oh, here's a cool little solo camp with your Blade Master you can take. Things like that. Could be interesting. Could be interesting. All right, so today's episode is called, hopefully I updated this. I can't remember if I did or not. Yes, Death Knight expansions versus human. Now, this is a strategy that I wish I knew a little bit more history on it, because it sort of just started happening. Not just started happening, it's been around for, you know, I think I found replays as old as maybe 4 months old, something like that. Some of these replays are actually quite old. I think 2 of them are pretty old, at least a couple of months that we'll be doing, but, you know, I do think these are good versions of the strategy, regardless of if it's been updated since then or not. But I wish I knew a little bit more about like who was doing this strategy first. Was it 120? It definitely wasn't Happy. Or was it a European? Was it somebody like an XlorD, like a Crab, like a Side? I don't know who did it first. Or maybe it was somebody like Labyrinth, right? I know I've seen Labyrinth do a Death Knight fast expansion versus human. But yeah, I can't give credit to who came up with this strat. It just seems like one day it was like, oh, everyone's trying this strategy out. Sheik does it quite often as well. I think I've seen him. Probably TGW would do it as well. A lot of the European undeads have taken a favorite of this, and particularly 120 has been doing it a lot, which is why I think it is a valid top tier strategy. A valid top tier strategy, because 120, he doesn't always do it. He mixes it up, but it's good to have more than one strategy, because as now we're learning with, let's say Orc versus Undead. Why don't we take that matchup for an example? Now that the meta is sort of shifting into every race has many viable strategies. You look at Undead, they have Cryptlord now. They have Death Knight builds. Sometimes there's Lich builds. Sometimes there's Dreadlord builds, not too commonly. Orc, of course, has Blade Master and Farseer in a couple of the matchups. Well, in 3 of the matchups, even now, as Farseer becomes more popular against Night Elf. Keeper isn't as standard as it used to be. Players are also mixing in a lot of Demon Hunter now today with Night Elf. In most matchups, we see it more commonly against Undead and again against Orc. So a lot of races are getting to the point where they at least have 2 viable strategies in every matchup. Is there a case where that is not true? Is there a case where that is not true? Not really. No, I can't really think of one. I think every matchup has at least 2 viable strategies, which might sound a little like this is a strategy game. What the hell? There's not a lot of strategies? This wasn't always true in the past. Wasn't always true in the past. I mean, Night Elves used to almost exclusively play Talons. Humans used to almost exclusively play like 1-base tower rushes. You know, Orcs would play Blade Master against Undead almost exclusively. I'm talking, you know, maybe 8-9 years ago. This is the sort of play. A human going other than Archmage. Well, I think, you know, human, they can play 1-base, they can play expansion. Maybe human against Orc would be where there's the least variability. Let's say that. The most of the changes come at like tier 2. But other than that, out of the gate, you can do 2 different strategies a lot of the time. And with that being said, the point I'm trying to make is this is really useful to be able to have a lot of different strategies. The more strategies you can have that are viable, not just in your back pocket, but sort of in people's minds when they play particular matchups. So for today's episode, since we're the undead playing against human players, what do we have to think about when we play against a human as an undead? What are some strategies they can do? Well, there's just 2 right off the bat, maybe 3. Let's say there's 3 right off the bat that they can do. The first one would be the standard fast expo, right? The next one would be just 1 base, no fast expo, which would be 1 base into rifle caster. And the third I would think of right away would be maybe pally rifles. Right, so us as an undead player, when we play against a human, when we find against a human opponent on ladder, we have to think, okay, I need to know how to counter at least these 3 things. And then if there's a 4th thing that shows up, let's just say there's a, weird strat. Let's just do a space and say weird strat we don't know. This happens quite often. It happens to top players all the time. Think of when Lynn first did Farseer Headhunters, as we talked about in the last episode, against these human players, and they're like, oh my god, what do I do? What do I do? This happens to top players, it happens to us on ladder, it happens to everybody. There's a weird strategy we don't know. Well, we see it one time, and then we have to come up with an idea of how to counter it in our head. But until we see this weird strategy we don't know, all we have to think when we queue against a human player is, okay, there's these 3 standard strategies. Right? How do I beat these 3 standard strategies? And how do I counter all 3 of them with one opening build? Because we want our one opening build to be as good against the widest range of strategies as possible. Same with our opening creep routes, same, whatever our hero choices, our base builds, things like that. So you could almost think of it, the more strategies our opponent has, the weaker our standard builds become, because the range of strategies in which we have to counter with that opener is bigger, thus weakening the strategy. Because if we only have to counter one strat, then we get into territory where we're just tunnel visioned on that one strat. We can hard counter it, we can pre-counter it, we can blindly run to particular creep camps. We can do one specific build order because we know we're only trying to counter one specific build order. And this is just true the more strategies there become. So now let's look at what can undead do against human. Well, let's say they have standard Ted Fiends, which would be the standard play, what you see Happy do all the time against humans. That would be the standard play. They have XlorD Expo. Now, the difference between these 2 build orders from our human opponent's perspective is massive, right? It's huge. Either with standard Ted Fiends, the first strategy, they're going to be trying to expand, and we're going to be running over and trying to harass them. With our Death Knight, we're going to be trying to get coil last hits. We're going to be trying to kill peasants, all those good things. So that's with the first standard Ted Fiends. And then just by adding in one more strategy, the XlorD Expo, the human has to counter so many more things, because with the XlorD Expo, we're doing the exact opposite. We're trying to expand as the undead, and the human is forced to come and pressure us, while expanding themselves, but also while countering the standard Ted Fiends. So just by the fact these 2 strategies exist and not just one or the other, it forces the human to do many things that are maybe suboptimal overall. But this isn't where it ends, also. This isn't where it ends. There's also maybe, let's say, Dreadlord is relatively common, especially not at the top level. Players have been playing Lich Ghoul pressure more often. So that wouldn't necessarily be a Lich expansion, but going Lich and harassing with ghouls very early on. And now all of a sudden there's this 5th style. And the strategies may have not come in this order. They may have come in a different order. Maybe this style is, came earlier than, say, the Lich style, but who knows? Well, certainly I don't know. People do know. Now we have this Death Knight, which is today's episode. Fast expansion. So now all of a sudden, there's 5 strategies the human has to counter. There may be a 6th that I'm even missing. Maybe there was a 4th for the human side of things that I was missing. But you see my point. Look at all the things that going into a game that our human opponents now have to think about. Now, it doesn't even matter if we, the undead player, know how to play all these strategies perfectly, just as long as our opponent is aware that these are possibilities, you see. Which is why this is really good to know how to do and for it to be a strong strategy. And I'm going to prove to you today that it is a strong strategy, and I'm also going to hopefully show you how to do it half decently. Right? So this is what we're going to be covering today. Death Knight Fast Expansion. And that's why Death Knight Fast Expansion is strong. Even though in isolation, if this was the only strategy we could do, it would still be, I think, a strong expansion. Or a strong strategy. A strong expansion, but a strong strategy. If it was the only strategy, I think it would still be good. It would still be viable. I am a CL Expo guy, see? And we did an episode where we covered 3 different XlorD expansion styles, all which have to be countered by the human in different ways. There was one where the human needed to get a different tier 3 tech. There was one where we didn't even expand. There's lots of different Cryptlord styles. So these all branch off. It's like a tree, right? They branch off into different strategies. Like, oh, we have a Death Knight fast expansion, but then that branches off when we hit tier 2 or tier 3, whatever, and we can do different things with it. Maybe we go into Gargs, who knows? But there's a specific style that 120 and also XlorD from today's replays have done that we're going to be covering today. Does that make sense? Or does it not? You guys get it? Was that mumbo jumbo? You see what I'm getting at? You see what I'm getting at? Check it out. You guys like that? Pretty dope, right? Okay. So, what is a Death Knight fast expansion? It was more like Mambo. Well done. Saul Goodman, that's exactly what replay number 2 is, which is why I said some of these replays are old, but I still think they're very worthwhile in learning something from. That's going to be one of the replays. Saul Goodman. I get it. Good. So a Death Knight fast expansion is simply DK plus ghouls. These are just the bare bones. You go instant expansion, creep. This is the bare bones steps to the strategy. You pressure while expoing with ghouls. So, just to cover these first 3 steps of the strategy, and of course we're going to cover these more in depth. We have 3 replays we're going to watch today of these, but just to give you the overview of the strategy, if I had to do a brief synopsis. You open with Death Knight plus ghouls, just as if you were playing against Night Elf. So Altar, Crypt, Zig, Shop, second Zig. 8 to 10 ghouls in the early game. Standard stuff that if you know the basic ghoul play with Undead, then you will know this build order. When your DK comes out, you immediately go and creep the expansion most times. Sometimes you'll creep one camp before, and then you'll go and you'll creep the expansion. And then, after you're done creeping the expansion, you'll have an Acolyte there ready to expand, but you won't expand right away most times. You'll go and you'll run over to the human side of the map and start pressuring them with ghouls, because not only are ghouls very good at creeping quickly, because you have many ghouls by the time your hero comes out, and they just have a good damage type. You can send them back when they get damaged, and they can heal up on your Blight in your main base. They're good at creeping early, quick at creeping, but also they're very good at pressuring peasants. So not only can you creep your own expansion and secure that quickly, but you can also run over to the human side of the map and pressure them while expanding at the same time. So it's a very safe way for you, the undead player, to secure your expansion. And you have Coil to still harass as though you were playing the standard happy style of things. And you have Coil to heal up your ghouls, and also Aura for the ghouls. So it's as though you're Cryptlord expanding, just with a much better first hero for playing ghouls all around. And then you pressure with the ghouls at the expansion, and then you go into tier 3 with Lich and hit a timing, let's say, because we're going to go much more into depth on this. Then you get your expansion up, you tech tier 3 very quickly, and you macro into a very strong 60-70 supply army. Level 2 water elementals wreck you? What about that? Excellent question, Mr. Yaz. We're going to be talking about that. Ooh, what a question. What a question. We're going to be talking about that. They do indeed wreck you, level 2 water elementals. That is a thing. That is a real thing, for sure. For sure. Which is why we're going to talk a lot about the map movement and how, at least in the first replay, 120, sort of avoids engagements as much as possible. So the first 2 replays, we have 3 replays in total. The first 2 replays are going to be sort of examples of 2 separate things. 2 separate benchmarks, shall we say. So the first replay is going to be 120 versus Chaemiko. And what I want this to be the benchmark for is not necessarily the macro side of things, but it's going to be the map movement side of things. So we're going to watch how 120 maneuvers his ghouls around the map, how he pressures the expansion, how he keeps his own expansion safe, by just being in aggressive positions on the map. So we're going to be talking about 120's positional play, and we'll also cover all the bases of the strategy itself, but 120 makes some macro errors in this game that obviously I wouldn't want you guys to replicate. So that's going to be the first replay we're going to watch. The second replay is going to be from XlorD against Todd, and what I want this replay to be is the benchmark for how to macro this strategy perfectly. I think XlorD does a ridiculous job of having perfect macro at every stage in the game and hitting a very, very clean timing once he hits tier 3. So these first two replays are for separate reasons, but they're both of the same strategy. And then the third replay is just because I had it. We'll see what you guys have learned, and we'll see what I have learned. We'll watch that third replay, which will also be 120 versus Chaemiko. Does that make sense? Now, this first replay, I had to use a replay tool, which doesn't allow War 3 booster to work after you've used it. So no War 3 booster, but I did make a compromise. Are there any questions? Are there any questions before we jump into the first replay? Make sure the first replay works. Oh yeah, it works. Oh yeah, it works. Any questions? Anything at all? Anything at all? We're gonna touch on Yaz's question about level 2 water elementals, what to do when they just own ghouls. Because they definitely do. It's also worth noting that this isn't good on all maps. It's really not good on all maps. New player here, please, not a lot of abbreviations. I'll try. It's sometimes difficult to not, for sure. Okay, I'll try not to abbreviate too much. Yeah, it's not good on all maps. So the first map is going to be Echo Isles. The other map we're going to see it work on is Tidehunters. I would say these are the two best maps for it. I'd say Echo Isles is the really, really, really good, really good map for it, Echo Isles. Ghouls are probably for advanced players. Easier to start with Fiend strats for beginners. 100% agree. Ghouls are difficult to control. Fiends are easier to control, and you have less of them. And they have more hit points and all that stuff. So, yeah, better to play Fiend openers if you're an undead player beginner. 100% agree. Yeah, Concealed Hill is not going to work for this strategy, most likely. Just because the expansion is really hard to creep for the undead. It's hard to creep for the human as well, which is why sometimes undeads will still open ghouls to pressure the expansion, but they're not going to be playing an expansion themselves. So Concealed Hill's out. Last Refuge probably out as well, because the things I'm going to show you in the first replay I don't think are going to necessarily work. Forcing the human to play defensively is difficult to do on Concealed Hill just because, or on Last Refuge, just because it's so easy to just run through the middle of the map and pressure, and also you have easy mercenary access. Lots of things. I think Northern Isles it could work on. In fact, I think that's the OG map that it was done on. Autumn Leaves it may work on, but your expansion could be very exposed, and again, there's a clear path through the middle of the map for the human to just run at your expansion, and then that makes it really difficult. And then, Amazonia, the expansion is too difficult. So I would say probably Echo Isles, Tidehunters, and Northern Isles, in that order, are the best maps for this strategy. Yeah, makes sense. If I had this lesson in 2005, I should play like Happy now. If only. If only we could go back in time. Who knows if these sort of strats would have worked back then, though, with those patch notes. Okay, here we go into replay number 1. This is 120 versus Chaemiko. Chaemiko's always getting beaten up in these versus human analysis, aren't he? He lost, I think, every single time we've had a versus human day, it's been Chaemiko getting beaten up. Every time. Only one. Why are you so awesome? I don't know. Don't know what I did. What did I do? Here we go. So we don't have War 3 booster, but what I did do here, listen to 120's rally points. This is incredible. I do like watching from 120's point of view, though, so that we can just sort of ignore everything going on this side of the map. I did make a little bit of a compromise. This is the in-game timer down here, because we don't have it on the War 3 booster. All right, so this is a little new addition. When we don't have War 3 booster, I'll try to I'll try to put it down here because I do reference the in-game time a lot of the time. Like, oh, around 9 minutes, this will be happening. Oh, at 12.5 minutes, you'll be pushing their expansion, things like that. So I did put it here so that we can see it. So that we can see it. We need a Chaemiko gets wrecked counter for this format. The cool thing is about these replays is Chaemiko, he's the first and third victim of this strategy. Chaemiko plays extremely well. He seems to have a really good idea of how you're supposed to counter the strategy from the human side of things, but 120 still just plays very well and ends up winning. But Chaemiko does a lot of good things, which make this actually quite the competitive game. This isn't going to be a steamroll at all from 120. All right, so Ghoul Opener. What's a Ghoul Opener? I'll show you right now. Altar, Crypt, Ziggurat, after the 4th Acolyte. So far, we're all following. You hear those rally points? That's what you have to do to be a pro, guys. So 5th Acolyte comes out, immediately build our 6th Acolyte. This bad boy here is going to do a lot for us. It's going to... The first thing this Acolyte is going to do is it's going to build our shop. Builds our shop. This will come up, build Ghoul. This Ziggurat will come up, we'll build our Death Knight. Now, this Acolyte could, you might be asking yourselves, why doesn't this Acolyte kill the Critter? Because in this replay, the Critter happens to be very far away. So 120 doesn't really waste any time chasing around this Critter. Say it was like right here, he definitely would have killed it. If maybe he saw it on his way, he would have killed it. But he's not going to like run around and search for it because he wants to get the Acolyte down to the mercenary camp of Chaemiko as early as possible to deny the possibility of Chaemiko pulling the priest early on. So yes, he'll kill the Critter if it's made easy, but he's not going to go out of his way to do it because he wants to make sure he's at this mercenary camp as early as possible. So that's where this Acolyte is heading. Immediately to the mercenary camp. So Ghoul's coming out, Death Knight coming out, shop is on time because we built it with that 6th Acolyte. Now, it's also worth noting, it's cool, this is less obvious nowadays, but like back in the day, if somebody was going a Ghoul Opener, way back, let's say 2 years ago, right? Way back in the day. If somebody was doing a Ghoul Opener, they almost would never scout with an Acolyte. Sometimes they would scout with a Ghoul, but they would very rarely actually scout with an Acolyte back in the day. Nowadays, it's much more common. So that was like a tell, right? It was like a poker tell. Like, oh, he scouted with an Acolyte, then I know that he's going for fiends, not for ghouls, because he scouted with an Acolyte. That's just how it worked. Whereas nowadays, people scout with an Acolyte when they go ghouls, when they go fiends. Sometimes they don't scout with an Acolyte, but they still build one and they creep with it. So this Acolyte, going and scouting our opponent, we might be thinking, oh, he's gonna think we're doing one strategy or the other. But really, this Acolyte doesn't tell us anything as the human nowadays. Because undeads either send this Acolyte or don't for many different reasons, and all those reasons could indicate any strategy a lot of the time. So, as you know, me in the past, I would have said, oh, this Acolyte is a fake out. He's faking the strategy, but really in this case, he just wants to get to the mercenary camp and scout. There's no fake going on. Gets second Ziggurat once he has the lumber to do so, and he's going to continue to build ghouls. Going to continue building ghouls. Until he has 8, is what my notes say. He's going to build ghouls until he has 8, which would mean he's at 27 supply. See, the Acolyte was here trying to make that footman's life difficult, but Chaemiko's really good. He's still got the priest. But there's a world in which he could have maybe blocked the footman, denied it.
Is complete.
So Death Knight comes out, sells his town portal at the shop, buys a Rod of Necromancy and a Sacrificial Skull, kills the Critter, gets 2 skeletons. Now, XlorD's going to do something that I think is a little bit better than 120 does here in terms of the open and creep routes, but 120 is going to go straight and creep his expansion. Acolyte continues to be annoying. It continues to get information. And 120, as we pointed out in our notes earlier, immediately goes and creeps his expansion. Right, pulls a 3rd Ghoul. He's just going to keep building ghouls. Again, until he hits, well, it should be 28 supply. Oh yeah, but he built an extra acolyte, right? So it'll be 28. Supply is when he'll have 8 ghouls. Note, he's going to build the ziggurat. He's going to build the ziggurat, and he's going to upgrade it to a Nerubian right away. And then he's going to build his gold mine once he has the golden lumber, but he's not going to build it too early. Because what might happen if 120, for instance, just runs straight across the map? This acolyte is, of course, making sure we know where the Archmage is. 120 just saw the Archmage right here. He most likely saw him run up and start to continue creeping. But what if the Archmage just straight ran across the map and we didn't know about it and we built the gold mine? Well, we would be able to do nothing about getting our gold mine canceled. So 120 is going to get in an aggressive position, ideally, and he's going to get his Nerubian up, close to being up, so that he can almost guarantee the expansion gets up. So he's going to run straight across the map, forcing Chaemiko, if Chaemiko wants to say creep this and then call militia and creep the expansion, the standard creep route, that 120 is going to be in such an aggressive position that if Chaemiko ever wanted to counterattack and cancel this, that 120 is already going to be on top of him, denying any sort of counterattack possibility. And 120 is going to do this throughout the entire game. He's going to defend his expansion with aggression. What's that football term? Best defense is an offense, defense, basketball term maybe? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? He's going to defend his expansion by being very aggressive, but he's also not going to short on the towers. He's going to get a Nerubian and a Spirit Tower at this expansion eventually as well. Back at home, he's just continuing to build ghouls. He'll get 8 in the early game. Best offense is a good defense. Defense is best offense. Best defense is a good offense. Very good. You guys get what I mean. You guys get what I mean. He's going to build 8 ghouls in the early game, but eventually he's going to go up to 10 ghouls. But it's very important. This is something I see undeads do. This is something I do all the time as well. My undead's really bad, right? Undead's my worst race by far. I'm terrible at it. This is something I do as a very common mistake. When I go for ghouls, I make way too many of them, especially with strategies like this, fast expansion strategies. If I'm doing this against Night Elf or I'm doing this against Human in this position, I'll overbuild ghouls. And ghouls are very good at this stage in the game right now where we are. What's up, Hitman? How's it going? Where we just build our expansion, we want to go and be aggressive. They're very good. They're very, very good. When they become very bad is when the Archmage hits level 3, for instance. And when we start to transition into different units, they become very bad. So we want to be careful not to overproduce ghouls. We don't want to be like me and build 14 ghouls. 8 to 10 ghouls, capping out at 10 ghouls is around where we want to stick at. Just because we have an expansion, just because our tier 2 tech is delayed, doesn't mean we have to overproduce ghouls, because we're going to be able to get enough value out of the 8 to 10 that we're going to build regardless. 120 is going to build 10 in total, but 8 in the early game here. So it's important to not overproduce ghouls, because eventually they're not going to be very useful to us. They're just going to get wrecked by level 2 water elementals. So that's an important opening thought. And we don't want to spend too much supply on these units that are just going to be pretty close to useless for us later on. We don't want to spend too much of a supply, because we want to keep our supply open for our late army. So we go across the map. Remember, the point of this is to be offensive, to defend our expansion, but we're first going to wait for the Nerubian to get up. The Footman's going to scout. And we're just building. This is our 7th ghoul, I believe. Yes, it is our 7th ghoul. There's our 8th ghoul coming out. And worth noting, this Acolyte stays here. And yes, this Acolyte could have been the one we built the expansion with, but 120 actually built a 7th Acolyte once his Death Knight came out to build these things. But he keeps his Acolyte here, tries not to lose it, tries to be as annoying as possible, and then he's actually leaving it here, and he's actually going to buy the Berserker. He's actually going to buy the Berserker. Let me guess, XlorD is level 2 by now? Yes, XlorD has a very good creep route. It's not crazy or anything either, but it's really, really nice. And we'll talk about why it's so good later on. He's going to buy the Berserker. So So it's almost important to keep this Acolyte alive, but it gets so much information for you. You see that the Archmage isn't running straight across the map. You delay the Mercenary creep because you're blocking the Footman and you're threatening last hits. But he does all that while still keeping it alive, and now he's going to steal the Berserker. Now he's going to steal the Berserker. He's going to have to, once the Ziggurats up, he'll have enough supply, actually. He's going to steal the Berserker, and he's going to pressure here. But what he's not doing with this pressure is just fully committing in all these ghouls. He's not going for a one-for-one trade. The sort of pressure that 120 is looking for at this expansion right now is longevity. He wants to be in Chaemiko's face as long as possible. Because the longer he's able to be aggressive, the more time his expansion has uncontested. So what he doesn't want to do is, although maybe we could run in right now, we have a 4th ghoul in the way. Let's say we lose all 4 of our ghouls, but we kill 5 peasants and 3 footmen, right? Let's say we do that. That's a good trade for us objectively. But then before we know it, we only have a Death Knight here, our Death Knight's out of mana, and what are we supposed to do if the human just decides to run across the map at our expansion? We don't have any ghouls in his face, threatening maybe a counterattack into the expansion in the main base. So what he wants here is longevity. He wants to be around here threatening to kill peasants, threatening to pressure the expansion attempt as long as he can. Even if he could trade favorably by losing ghouls, he still doesn't want to do it. Wars of Champions is down? Probably is. Hello, dude, 2307. So that's what he's looking to do. That's what he's looking to do. Yes, we'll take some losses. In fact, I think he loses the Berserker he purchases. But he wants to stick around here because the longer he can be in the face of the Archmage, the safer this expansion is going to be.
Summoning is complete.
Kills the Priest, gets level 2, now he has Aura. And this is all gravy right now. Gets a Peasant, hasn't lost anything yet. You could argue maybe he's taking a little bit too much damage on his Death Knight, but that's where the Aura comes into play. And the Footman over here was pretty annoying. It chased around the Acolyte. He could have left a ghoul back here. It chased around the Acolyte, forcing the Acolyte to build the gold mine. But this is still a pretty good timing for him to build the gold mine, because we notice the Archmage just summoned this water elemental. Just summoned it. What does that mean? Well, he could get level 3 and get a little bit more mana, but he doesn't have the mana to run across the map and to summon a water elemental and pressure us. So the Archmage has used all of his mana. We know the entire army is here. We can see the footman count, and we know the Archmage is still here. Therefore, we know our expansion is pretty safe. We know only this footman is here, and we can even send a ghoul from the main base to deal with the footman. The Nerubian's going to be up soon. So it's pretty safe for us to build this gold mine. Right? There's not really a threat. If Chaemiko were to run across the map right now and try to cancel this gold mine, yes, maybe he'd be able to do it, but then we just run into his base with everything. We could even pull some more ghouls, and we just run at him with everything. And he's going to lose a lot more than he gains, because he shows up and we go, oh, we canceled our hot and gold mine, but what do you know? We killed 6 peasants for that trade, because he spent all this time running across. So this is the sort of consistent play that 120 is going to do to secure his expansion. Because Chaemiko could run across the map, but it wouldn't be worth it for him. It wouldn't be worth it for him. And that's 3 peasants going down. This is where ghouls are very, very good. They're good at this initial pressure, but then once the Archmage hits level 3, which he might here, that's actually an insane coil. 120. Ridiculous coil. Once the Archmage hits level 3, they become a lot worse. He did pull ghouls from the main to deal with the footmen. And then this is an interesting thing. He's still going up to, remember, we're not going to get more than 10 ghouls, but he is going up to the 10 ghouls. He builds Graveyard before teching. Builds Graveyard before teching. And if we look at the Golden Lumber, like 120 actually could, if he didn't build this Graveyard, very soon he'd be able to tech with this return of lumber from both these guys. But he needs to wait for the gold mine to be up, because he's going to actually build Acolytes from his main necropolis before teching. So he can invest into this Graveyard. He can even invest soon into a second Ziggurat, because he's waiting for the gold mine and the 5 Acolytes to be available to mine from the gold mine before he techs. So we got a little bit of downtime. So he builds the Graveyard early, and then he's going to use that to get a nice early Spirit Tower as well at the expansion. after he techs. But he can definitely get the graveyard because it doesn't cost a lot of lumber. Or any lumber, let's say. How about that? Cash me outside. And again, Ring Around the Rosie goes straight back to the expansion. Doesn't need to commit in here. He's going to commit in. He might lose something, but all he's got to do is make sure the Archmage and the army is here. It's not even so important that he delays the expansion, although he has delayed the expansion. It's just more so important that he keeps the army and the Archmage at bay. He's going to feed level 3 here, but he would have gotten it off the expansion regardless. And now, okay, the Acolytes are coming out. Graveyard's about to be up. He's going to build a second Ziggurat here, which will eventually become the Spirit Tower. These are going to be the 2 towers that 120 and, in fact, every undead that does a strat get. They just get a Spirit Tower and a Nerubian at their expansion. Makes it quite safe if the human pressures later on. Alright, so the Death Knight and 2 ghouls are sticking around. Some low ghouls are going back, but watch what happens now. Watch what happens now. Goes in, can't do anything, that's fine. The Archmage just summoned a Water Elemental. Doesn't have a... He would have enough mana if he ran across the map, but he's still here. All the footmen, the Water Elemental just got summoned. Chaemiko's playing defensive. If you see the Archmage summon a Water Elemental like this, they're pretty much playing defensive. That's what he's going to do. And yeah, if we ran in here against this level 2 Water Elemental, we would just lose everything. We wouldn't be able to win a fight here. But all that matters is the Archmage is defensive. That's the entire early game. That's all we're worried about. Keep him defensive. We don't need to kill peasants. We don't need to kill footmen. We don't need to do anything. We just need to keep him defensive.
Summoning is
now the Archmage is going across the map. The Death Knight's going to get a staff. But look, he's going to staff back because he wants another rod. What do the ghouls do? The ghouls don't go back with him. The ghouls are going to run up and threaten a counterattack right now. That's what they're going to do. And more ghouls could even be pulled as well. Someone like Krav would definitely be pulling all these ghouls right now. But he's not going to be. And Death Knight's going to go get a rod, and then he sees the Archmage going to pressure him, so he thinks, okay, I'll go back with the Death Knight. But look what these ghouls are going to manage to do. Look what these 3 ghouls are going to manage to do. Okay, Death Knight gets another rod, he pulls the ghouls, and goes to defend his main base. Still trying to get 5 Acolytes before he techs here. Look, these 3 ghouls, they go down, threatening to kill. If these 3 ghouls went to the expansion right now and there was no army here, this Water Elemental is going to expire soon. There was no army here, no footmen, whatever. They would just start killing all these peasants. So by these 3 ghouls being in this position threatening the counterattack, it forces Chaemiko to maybe not keep his entire army, but most of his army back. You know, at least 3-4 footmen back. Or else 120 is going to come in here and just ignore the footmen and start killing peasants. And it's going to be really bad because the Death Knight is already playing defensive. So these ghouls, by just being in this position, and by 120 also scouting that the footmen are in this position, he knows that it's only the Archmage coming to pressure him right now. And of course, he already killed the priest, he already stole the berserker, there's no chance for mercenaries, which would be a really good way to defend this. So he knows only the Archmage is coming to pressure him. And he's already got a Nerubian up here, he bought enough time for that. His Death Knight staff back to the main base, and he's pulling the ghouls that he built at the main base to defend against just a solo Archmage. And that's what these 3 ghouls are doing. They're not going to do a lot for him. They're not going to get any peasant kills. It's not like they're going to run in here blindly, stupidly, and just die for 1 peasant. No, but what they're going to do is force the army to be defensive still. That's the whole point of them. They see the army is here. He says, okay, cool, the army is here. He's just going to run up to the main base with them. And again, force the army to react. While defending with a Death Knight in the main base. Well, the main expansion, let's say.
Summoning is complete.
The Nerubian's up. Yeah, we might take some losses. Because level 3 Archmage is really cool. And really good. And really sweet. But we have a Nerubian up. Okay, we're attacking now. We're eventually going to get this around. This would be a massive mistake for anyone to not get this around. So he's going to get it eventually. Don't worry. And the ghouls run into the main base. They kill 1 peasant. And they just run away. Because they could. If we were in 120's shoes right now, we wouldn't even have to do this. Who cares about killing 1 peasant in the main base? So now we force the Archmage back. And now... you know, the Archmage is defensive, so if the army were to come, we know the Archmage is defensive. As long as one or the other is back at his base, we're totally fine. We're totally safe. What we want to avoid, I can't stress this enough, the main thing we want to avoid is the entire army with the Archmage running at us, because if that happens, we're going to see this in replay number 3, they're just going to own us, because they have level 3 Archmage and we have shitty ghouls. That's what we want to avoid, the entire army and the Archmage being safe to just run at our expansion, because then we cannot defend. Right? Tech starts, and then we build a necropolis, because we want a necropolis, 1 for the supply, but 2, now if we lose acolytes at the expo, we can't actually rebuild them. So we want a necropolis eventually at this expansion. We're also going to get a spirit tower, and then eventually we're going to get a second crypt. Eventually we're going to get a second crypt.
Upgrade complete.
This is all just time buying right now, threatening the surround because we know the Archmage doesn't have the staff or the town portal, so as long as we threaten to surround the Archmage, Chaemiko has to be defensive. That's what burning the TP did for us. Do we have a second crypt coming up? There's a second crypt. Let's get a ghoul count, shall we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Does he have 11? He does have 11. Well, let's say 10 or 11. I would say he doesn't need... Oh, what actually happened? This is what happened. I remember from the replay. The reason he has 11 ghouls right now is because when this ghoul was running away, this one with 48 HP, he thought this was going to die, so he built one at the crypt. But then this one didn't die, and he still built the ghoul. That's what happened. That's why he has 11. So he wanted 10. But he's got 11, because this ghoul didn't end up dying because his micro was too good. Right? Makes sense? Alright, so we're still just keeping our expansion safe. Again, still the last thing. Stop, pause. Stop that. Still the whole goal right now is to keep the Archmage away from our expansion, right? That's the whole goal. Even if we don't do any damage to his expansion, that's totally fine with us. Because all we want to do is make sure the army doesn't run across the map. And behind this, we're just going to pump 2 Crypt Fiends until we're at 43 supply it's going to be, and then our Lich is going to put us at 48. Again, the next replay is going to be the benchmark for the macro.
Our forces are under attack.
That was a miscoil, so we're going to lose our 11th ghoul. Doesn't matter, it was our 11th ghoul. What's up, me VIP, you VUP with the 11 months? Appreciate you, thank you.
Our forces are under attack.
Notice how much this army destroys us if we allow it to. Right?
Summoning is complete.
Like, this is a terrifying army. And he's running at us. But what have we bought time for? Well, our tier 2 is about to be done. And pretty much by the time... What's up, Don Delara? How you doing, man? Pretty much by the time our Lich is out, that's when we're safe. Because Lich is really good against the Footmen. You can start to deal with the Water Elementals more easily once you have some Fiends. There they are. So, like, once our Lich is out and our first couple of Fiends, that's when the army running across the map becomes less scary. So, Chaemiko still has a little bit of a window before this Lich is out to pressure us, but at least we have the Spirit and the Nerubian, and we're starting to pump 2 Crypt Fiends. Right? So we're a little bit safer now, but still, if he ran at us right now, it would still be kind of scary. But 120 has definitely bought enough time at this stage. Still, like, he's not going to do anything here, 120. He could be creeping level 3 on his side, right? There's lots of things he could be doing, because short of him actually getting a last hit with the Fiends, he doesn't have a coil. There's really nothing he's going to be able to do against someone as good as Chaemiko here, right? But it's all time bought because he's actually slowing down the creeping. That's the whole thing here. Archmage gets level 4, heal scroll, push invulnerability. All right, we'll take a look at the macro. So I said that 120 is going to make some macro errors this game. The biggest one of those being he never produces off the second crypt for some reason, or he very rarely does. So if we are 120 here, we'd want to be building units off the second crypt. With that being noted, though, 48 supply, like I said, that's with our Lich. That's with our 10 ghouls, now 9. So we just build fiends until we're at close to 50 supply with our Lich. And then we're going to go tier 3 immediately. We're going to build our slaughterhouse. And in fact, 120 builds 2 slaughterhouses this game. I think just building 1 is perfectly fine, I'll be honest with you, which is going to be proven by on our second replay. If he goes 2 slaughterhouses intentional, yeah, I'm not sure it's good. I'm not sure it's good. But 120 might have had a different idea in mind this game. But I'll talk about this more in replay too. Let's just say he does 2 slaughterhouse, whatever. Human tech right now, we can look at that. Close to even, a little bit behind. To ignore second crypt isn't a mistake. Well, I mean, he could have had like this fiend earlier. Obviously, he doesn't want to break upkeep right now. That's not what I'm saying. It's not like he should be going 51 supply with a fiend here. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying he could have at least built a fiend off this crypt. But regardless, okay. So he goes tier 3, gets his Lich. He's 48 supply. He hasn't broken upkeep yet. He's going to get his slaughterhouse. And 120 is now going to bank. No. I'm not saying he's supposed to break here. That's not what I'm saying. He's not going to break here. That's not why I'm saying not producing off the second crypt. I'm saying that he doesn't produce off this second crypt for pretty much the entire game. That's what I'm saying. You guys misunderstand. He literally, I don't think, builds a fiend off this crypt ever. So he's going to build the slaughterhouse. And he's going to wait to break upkeep until the slaughterhouse is done. Then once the slaughterhouse is done, he of course wants to start building his first statue right away. So then when the slaughterhouse is done, he's going to start breaking upkeep. Crypt is obviously a bouncer. Well, he could have done that with a graveyard as well. So once the slaughterhouse is up, he's going to build 2 statues and he's going to break upkeep. Until then, what are we supposed to do with the bank that we're accumulating? Well, 120, he's going to be buying things like mana potions. He's going to be buying things like potions of invulnerability if he can, and he's going to be upgrading his fiends to 2-0. And he's also going to be getting things like burrow, possibly web if he needs to. Not always are you going to need web, but we may see a replay today that you do need web. So he's going to get all these luxury things that you can get before you decide to break upkeep. So he's going to get 2-0 fiends, mana pots possibly, burrow on the fiends, and then once the slaughterhouse is up, then he's going to be breaking upkeep pretty much once it's up. Once it's up. No, I think you guys are making a mistake, in my opinion, of assuming that top players do not make mistakes. Lich comes out. Sometimes top players just mess up. I'll keep an eye on the crypt. I could be misremembering. He builds a second slaughterhouse as well. This is going to get canceled, so it's not going to have an impact on the game. But worth noting that this game, 120 decides to do 2 slaughterhouse. I think XlorD has a better build order next game. And we're just going to creep because we're still similar to a standard game. We're still waiting for tier 3. And note he's also got double mana pot because he's waiting to break upkeep. The slaughterhouse gets canceled. And we're going to staff back. And he does break upkeep with the first statue. And now he could start producing more fiends. Another thing that 120 could also do right now, which XlorD is going to do next game, is around this time, of course, he needs to be building at least a 70 supply ziggurat. But what XlorD does, he builds a 70 and 80 supply ziggurat. Around this time when we're breaking upkeep, we'll get more zigs. Because if we look at it, we have 1, 2, 3, that's 30 supply. And then over here we have 1, 2, 3, 60 supplies. So that's most of our early game supply taken care of. And then we just need to remember eventually around this time to build our 70, 80 supply ziggurat. He just likes the aesthetics of a crypt there, yeah. I'll keep an eye on it. I might be wrong that he never uses this, but I don't think he ever uses it. But yeah, he's going to be building 2 statues. By the time his 2 statues are out, he's going to get Destroyer form, right? That's how it's going to time, just like a standard undead game. He's just going to continue to build fiends after Burrow is done. He's just going to have 2 statues, a bunch of fiends, and try hero once tier 3 hits. The footmen are trying to do what they can because they're going to be useless soon. There's going to be an orb. There's going to be destroyers soon. Chaemiko, this is the right play from him. He's got to do something with these. He's got to slow down the economy. He's got to, force mana off the Death Knight. He's got to do these things. Because or else he's just going to be stuck with a bunch of useless footmen, similar to how we would be stuck with a bunch of useless ghouls had we not, underproduced them and used them to their death. See, this is pretty good pressure from Chaemiko. He's losing all the footmen, but he's forced the heal scroll, a mana pot. He killed a couple of ghouls. He killed a couple of acolytes. He's definitely lost more, but at least he uses footmen for something. Okay, and tier 3 is done. Second statue on the way in the destroyer form. He's going to grab the orb. He's going to keep building fiends. And then we'll see how this timing works out. See, and look how well this was timed as well from Chaemiko. As soon as the tier 3 was about to be done, he did that sort of pressure. Whereas otherwise, if he hadn't, 120 would have just picked up an orb and ran across the map at him. But notice, 120, he goes below upkeep, but he's immediately breaking upkeep, right? Like, it's not as though he's not trying to stay below 50 supply. Once he hits tier 3, he's trying to break upkeep. He wants to be producing. Right? He just broke upkeep 3 times in a row after losing a unit. So I think it's safe to say 120 is trying to get up to 60, 70 supply ASAP. I think that's a safe assumption. Okay, loses a ghoul, and again, for the 4th time, breaks upkeep immediately. Right? Like, he got the orb. He's got 2-0 on the fiends, which he upgraded pretty early. And he's got 2 statues destroyer form. So it's just fiends, 2 statues into destroyer form, then he'll get a 3rd statue after this. And he's about to get a 3rd hero. Not trying to avoid taxes, I respect that. Yeah. So pretty much, I think it's safe to say, once the slaughterhouse is done, that's when 120 is happy to break upkeep. Because that's around a good enough time spent banking, assuming we haven't taken a bunch of damage, right? Because we get, like, a good 60 seconds, 2 minutes of banking, not producing anything. Which is definitely enough to be able to break into at least 60, 65 supply with an orb and a 3rd hero. 120 is going to get a 3rd hero. Most times he would get Frenzy. I don't believe he got Frenzy this game because he lost all the ghouls. Had he not lost all the ghouls, what do you know, we have 2 crypts to get Frenzy from. Well, in 120's case, we have 1 crypt to get Frenzy from. So if we hadn't lost all the ghouls, we could definitely get Frenzy here. But 120 actually has only 1 ghoul left because, again, that was really good pressure from Chaemiko. So we're not going to get that. We're just going to build fiends and more statues. Going to get a 3rd hero. In this case, 120 is going to get a Naga. But we could get a Dark Ranger. We could get a Pit Lord. Naga's kind of a cool play because this is like a sort of a big timing push. And then around this timing, with whatever supply we have, in the case of 120 here, he has 58. Sometimes you'll have around 70 because you'll keep all your ghouls alive. He's even sending his ghouls back. But let's picture a world in which 120 kept those 10 ghouls from the early game alive with Frenzy. His army would be the exact same. He would just have 10 ghouls with Frenzy with this push as well. So imagine how strong that would be. It would be ridiculous. Right? That'd be 78 supply. 78 supply and enough supply to morph a destroyer as well. Right? He would need to get these ziggurats early if he wanted to do that, but in this case he doesn't need them. So he's got 2-0 fiends, tri-hero. He's got burrow already. Don't think he has web. He doesn't need it this game. Tri-hero with orb, greater mana. No town portal, but this is the timing. We're at 12 minutes. This is generally when undeads will be pushing. And he's going to push the expansion. Now, why does this sort of a push work? Because you might be thinking, like, this is weird. Doesn't undead just normally do this push, but a lot earlier? But just a lot earlier. Of course, 120 is stronger here. He's got 20 fiends. He's got about 10 more supply. Maybe even like 15 more supply. Right, so you might be thinking, what's the point of the expansion if we're still just going to rush tier 3 and do a timing push? Well, the reason this works is because the push is stronger, and also, even if we're even on tech with the human, just think about how undead macro works compared to human. Human has to wait to be tier 3. Let's look at Chaemiko's base, who's going to be tier 3 as well. He's got to wait to be tier 3 before he can produce the units that he wants to build, before he can get knights. We only need to be tier 2 to start producing. We could even be tier 1 if we wanted to produce fiends, but of course we're going to build them after we tech. We can start pumping fiends and statues by the time we've started teching, and then, of course, by the time our slaughterhouse is on tier 2, then we can start pumping statues. But we're already preparing our tier 3 push army right after we start teching to tier 2. Whereas Chaemiko has to wait literally until he's tier 3 to start producing the army that he ideally wants. If not, he's got to go rifle caster, which is maybe the better way for Chaemiko to play, but most humans aren't going to play that way. That's why these sort of pushes work, even though we're both teching at the same time. Our tech was maybe 10-15 seconds ahead of Chaemiko's tier 3 tech, not that much ahead, whereas in most cases on one base we'd be a full tech ahead. But that's why this works. That's why it's not like he's not entirely prepared for this push, because he literally has to wait until he's tier 3 to start producing the units that he needs to counter these fiends. That's why this works. What time is undead one base push? Yeah, 9 minutes around. So this is 3 minutes later. This is 3 minutes later, but a lot stronger. Like, in some cases, 20 supplies stronger. You see. 20 supplies stronger, about. Because, remember, if those ghouls were alive, we would be at 78. Right? 10 ghouls, 20 supply. 78 supply. And here's the push. Not the strongest of pushes, because Chaemiko did a really good job this game. But this is still going to work. Because 120 also did a very good job. Where did he do a good job in this game? He did a good job not taking damage at his actual expansion. Yes, he lost some ghouls. Yes, he didn't do a lot of creeping. But his economy was more or less uninterrupted at both his main base and his expansion for the entire game. That's what's important about this. By the way, he hasn't built anything off this crypt still, though. Did human mess up by not having barracks ready before tier 3? You could argue that for sure. But he would only have like an extra half of a knight because he power built it immediately. Kills all the towers, all the peasants, starts creeping. You know, he's just got to win one more fight and he's probably won the game. The important thing here is Chaemiko's not mining. We are mining. And there's 3 knights, which is pretty scary. But normally we're dealing with 3 knights, and we only have like 45 supplies, the undead. But here we could morph some destroyers if we wanted. 120 is not, because he realizes that statues are actually better here than having a destroyer, despite all the heavy armored units. He's just continuing to produce. I think he builds an abomination now that he has 3 statues, but this is just a luxury unit. And there's really, like, there's no way, right? There's just no way. Maybe hero focus would be the way, but there's simply no way. Because this whole time, he wasn't mining. He's still not even mining fully. And at any point, 120 could just morph 3 destroyers. And look how many fiends he has. There's never going to be enough flying machines to counter a triple destroyer morph. But 120 is so confident that he's not even doing that. But if he had web right now, like, he would need 16 flying machines to be able to counter 3 destroyers. Just because there's, you know, 8 fiends. So although the knights look a little bit scary, they could easily be countered. And fighting. Level 2 Naga. Nice Goyle. This is the stage in the game where most undead players are like, damn, I just lose everything. But again, worth noting, he's not even morphing these. And there's 1 flying machine in the air, which is kind of strange. This kiting is pretty difficult to do, yeah. But remember, this wasn't a very strong push, right? This wasn't very strong. It could have been much, much stronger. And even faster as well. Destroyers suck? Yeah, but when you're up against 5 knights with 1 flying machine in the air. You see. You might ask, if this push doesn't work, what's the right transition? Just 2 Temple Banshee. IMO. Just go into... If you're forced to back away, you don't break the expansion, you just go into Banshees. Master Train Banshees, put 2 Temple down. Pretty good, pretty good. Statues provide the sustain. True. But all the human had in a lot of these fights, Chaemiko was just nice. But yeah, eventually 120, thanks to the sustain, breaks through. Naga sucks too, too risky. Yeah, Dark Ranger works as well, I think. Dark Ranger might be better. 120 more commonly goes Naga, actually, with this push, but other players do Dark Ranger, which I think I like Dark Ranger better. And GG's. Here's replay number 1. So what I said that replay should be is the benchmark for map movement. Right? How to delay the inevitable human pushing your base with a bunch of footmen and level 2 water elementals. So how did 120 position his ghouls? How did he harass? How did he buy time? Right? That's the sort of thing. But in terms of macro, I said it could be better, and this next replay is going to be way better. It's going to be way better. Way better. This timing is going to be ridiculous from XlorD in this second replay. You're going to really see just how crazy strong this can potentially be. I think this is about as good as it gets in terms of timings. This is probably best case scenario. I'm trying to think of how this game could have gone better, but I can't. Thank you, Mengo234, for the 17 months. Appreciate you. XlorD is a beast. Yeah, this is a very, very good game from XlorD. And it's a little bit an older game, but still, it's the same strategy. Just, I think, better done on the macro side of things. It is strange. In Fiends vs. Knights, sometimes it's a total stomp in one direction, but other games it's a pure stomp in the other direction. Is it all about heroes? I would say... What would I say? Is it all about heroes? Maybe. I think certainly having level 2, level 3 Mountain King can help a lot, especially if you can get like clap and get a nice clap on the Fiends early and get good positioning. But I mean, if the undead has room to kite, like 120 did throughout this entire push, it becomes a lot easier. But a lot of the time when you're pushing into a human expansion, say on one base, you're forced to end the game right there. 120 wasn't necessarily forced to end the game right there. He had an expansion himself. He could have transitioned out of it. So he had the time and the patience and the room to maneuver and to kite. And if you're able to do the kiting, then it ends up being a lot better for the undead to fight against these sorts of armies. But if you're playing one base and you're like, oh, I have a pit lord, I'm ready to go, I need to end the game right now, I need to break the expansion or I lose, a lot of the times, undead is going to be taking the worst positioning in the fight because they're pressured to actually fight right here, right now, whereas the human is like, I can sit back all day, I can wait, I can mine, I can build more towers, I can get more knights. So the undead is more often than not forced to push into that human expansion and fight into things like militia, fight with their back to a wall, not be able to kite, things like that. So that's why maybe on one base, even if the army is the same, you might see the undead taking worse fights. It's all about being able to kite, though, I would say. Wonder if Clap and Blizzard Retrain would work for better for the last defense. Blizzard Retrain I've always been a fan of against undead for the human side of things, but... Yeah, and we saw 1-2-0. Yes, he was losing some units, but he was able to consistently kite. He was able to kite so far that he got to the shop and bought a heal scroll during the fight with the Death Knight. Right? But we're going to see a much stronger push this game. Okay, replay number 2. Going to be Todd versus XlorD. XlorD versus Todd would be from XlorD's point of view. Let me just get this to the right position in the game. Really quick. And everything's going to be the same for XlorD. There's going to be very slight differences in sort of the build orders. And I think everything XlorD does macro-wise and creep route-wise as well, although it's a very slight difference. I think everything XlorD does macro-wise is a little bit better than what 1-2-0 did throughout the game. So if you want to take a build order and the order of which to do things best, I would take it from this game. But with that, XlorD also maybe leaves himself open if he was against Chaemiko, for example, the best human in the entire world. Maybe he would leave himself open to counterattacks less often, or sorry, he would leave himself open to counterattacks more often than 1-2-0 did in the last game, despite macroing better than 1-2-0. So there's give and take here between these two players. They both do something better than the other. Would Tinker Third with Pocket Factory work here? Possibly. Tinker Third might work, but that's probably even more all-in than the Naga was. Probably even more all-in. Alright, would War 3 Booster work here? Probably not, whatever. We'll do the same as the last game. Not a big deal. Let's do consistency. Here we go, replay number 2. So, same build again. That's what I was trying to avoid by fast-forwarding, but I missed... At least I missed most of the chat in this replay. I missed most of it. So, the Acolyte this time around does the same thing, but he was able to kill the critter because he saw it early. The build order is still the same, though. See, he builds the 6th Acolyte to go and scout. The 7th Acolyte is being built to go build the expansion. He sells the Talent Portal, Sacrificial Skull, Rod of Necromancy. Everything is exactly the same for XlorD as it was for 1-2-0 in the last game. Exactly the same. The big difference here in the early game, XlorD actually loses the Acolyte, but this is just because Todd is creeping the mercenary camp first, whereas I think Chaemiko went for the green first. I don't quite remember. But he loses the Acolyte nevertheless. So that's the big difference. He's not able to keep the Acolyte around for as long as 1-2-0 did, which means he's not going to be able to buy the Berserker away, which was very impactful for 1-2-0, which also means this Acolyte isn't in position to scout for potential counterattacks early on. So that's a slight mistake from XlorD, not keeping this Acolyte as safe as maybe he could, but it's also nice from Todd to make sure to be able to kill that Acolyte because he realizes he can get a lot of impact from it. That's the first big difference in the game.
Are under attack.
This is another big difference in the early game. I like this creep out a lot. Look how fast he does this. So remember last game 1-2-0 was stuck on level 1.9 Death Knight because you don't get level 2 straight from the green camp. So XlorD very neatly just takes the big null with 1 coil and then runs straight to the expansion. That's going to give him a clean level 2 instantly. Very nice, right? Very nice. Let me actually go to his vision. Another critter here. He's going to creep the expansion. Again, Ziggurat before Goldmine. Remember how long 1-2-0 delayed his Goldmine last game? Because you don't want it to get cancelled. Right? You don't want it to get cancelled. You never want your expansion to get cancelled. Especially if you're a human player, but, you know, every race wants to avoid their expansion getting cancelled. And that's why 1-2-0 last game delayed his Goldmine so much, whereas XlorD this game not delaying it as much. So a couple of differences where XlorD maybe leaves himself open a little bit. ghouls being pulled from the main. But he's going to soon have 2 on lumber. And he's going to pressure here. And this harass is going to go very, very well for XlorD. Very, very well. Which is just credit to how good ghouls are at early pressure before the Archmage hits level 3 against human.
Our town is under attack.
Against the last game, Footman pressuring the Acolyte, but the Nerubian is going to counter it soon. Remember, 120 got 3 peasant kills last game. XlorD's gotten 1 already. 120 also got a priest kill last game. He knows Todd's timings. That definitely could be true, Deuce, because these guys play each other all the time. So it might look like a risk to me, but in XlorD's head, he knows what Todd's going to do, so he's not worried about it. Yeah, that's 100% could be true, for sure. Thank you, Todd. Thank you. So he's going to be able to kill the Berserker, and this is all just, he just wants to delay as much as possible. He doesn't want to delay as much as possible because he wants to stop the expansion altogether. He wants to delay because he doesn't want this Archmage and these Footmen and this Berserker that's now dead, but it could be alive in a different game maybe. He doesn't want him to just run across the map, because if he does, yes, the gold mine is up, but XlorD's not going to be able to hold this. Like, look at his army. He's not going to be able to hold this. He's got, what, a few ghouls? If the Archmage hits level 3, which it will after this Ogre Magi, and just runs across the map, XlorD is going to lose his expansion. He is not going to be able to hold this. What do you think about building a Necropolis at the Expo? I feel like this allows for a quicker Tier 2 tech. Yeah, I think that's something that maybe 120 hadn't considered. Because, yes, you save the gold by skipping this before your Tier 2 is done, but also you're not able to tech until you have 5 Acolytes over here saturating this. So I think whether or not to build this Necropolis maybe is something that could be debated before you tech. I think you 100% should build it eventually at your expansion, whether that be before or after your Tier 2 tech. I don't know what's best, but I think XlorD did do everything macro-wise better this game. I would go for the early Necropolis. I would go for it, because if we look at the gold and lumber, it's really no issue. It's really no issue. And yeah, the Necropolis also allows you to keep ghouls at the expansion, which is quite nice. It's quite nice.
Our forces are under attack.
But you could also do that with a graveyard, it's worth noting. The graveyard, again, will be coming up before the Tier 2. And yeah, this harass just goes very, very well for XlorD, right? Even kills the Berserker. A lot of things going on. But it doesn't even need to go well, is my point. All it needs to do is make space for the counter expansion, if you could call it a counter expansion. I don't think you can. Again, Staff of Teleportation is going to be purchased. And again, second Ziggurat for the Spirit Tower. Again, Graveyard before attack. These are all the same things. The only big difference so far between XlorD and 120 has been he crept this little green guy to get level 2 right away. He built the Necropolis before attacking, and he didn't keep his Acolyte as safe, which could be argued that's something that Todd did differently from Chaemiko as well, was focus more on killing the Acolyte. 3 big differences. Other than that, everything pretty much exactly the same. Another difference is going to be these ghouls took a lot of damage, whereas for 120 he was able to keep them quite healthy, which means they're not able to, remember they were sitting, the spawns were reversed last game, but remember when 120's ghouls were just sitting right here, or maybe right here, waiting to go into the expansion and pressure? These ghouls aren't really healthy enough to be able to do that. Because they could, you know, easily be countered by a couple of militia or something like that, or a couple of footmen left behind. So maybe keeping these ghouls a bit healthier could be nice, but he killed the Berserker with it as well, so it's all a give and take. It's all a give and take. This is where the strategy can become very difficult, is this sort of pressure, doing it perfectly. Really tricky. Really, really tricky. Staff's back. He saw the Archmage and the Footman, so he's pretty safe. And similar, but only with 2 ghouls instead of 3. XlorD has a couple of ghouls to do a run by. So, like, let's say that Todd, like he's actually doing, goes across the entire map with all of his footmen and his archmage. The 2 ghouls could go in and threaten a run by here, but Todd actually quite nicely left a footman and a priest here. So just the 2 ghouls wouldn't be able to do a ton. If it was like 4 ghouls, they'd probably be able to run in here and this priest and this footman wouldn't be able to do anything. But 2 ghouls, debatable.
Our forces are under attack.
Graveyard's up, tech is underway because the expansion is saturated. We can now get a spirit tower and our second crypt. Remember, those are the things we get after our tech. These ghouls are being a bit annoying. Exact same sort of pressure 120 was doing. He was just doing it with an extra ghoul.
Our town is under attack.
See, and now Todd is able to run across the map and start pressuring. The Death Knight happens to be level 3, though, which is really nice. We're going to see this be really helpful in game number 3 as well. If the Death Knight's level 3, it makes it a lot easier to defend here than if you have Death Knight level 2. But still, Todd is going to do a really good job pressuring here. But because XlorD already has this Necropolis up, and he's already got the Graveyard up to build the Spirit Tower, losing some of these Acolytes isn't going to be as impactful as it maybe would have been for 120, because remember, 120 did not have this Necropolis. And another thing this Necropolis can do, the ghouls were already here mining, so they're in position to defend. So that's a lot of advantages this Necropolis before the tier 2 tech has, right?
Our forces are under attack.
Let's get a ghoul count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And he's already going into Fiends. 8 ghouls into Fiends. Last game, 120 wanted 10. Not a big difference, right? Maybe eventually XlorD will get those extra 2 ghouls, right? Not a big deal. Second grip comes up. He's going to go Fiends. Again, he's going to go Fiends until his tier 2 is done. Then he'll get his Lich. He doesn't want to break upkeep until the Slaughterhouse is up. These are all things that are going to remain consistent. So just Fiends until around 43 supply. 2 more Fiends. Another shop. This is something I don't think 120 did either. But, hey man, makes it a little bit safer. Could buy another Rod if he wanted. Why not? Why not? Ghouls kind of weirdly go back to the main base here. I think they could stay at the expansion. They're more efficient at the main base. Note already +1 as well. They're more efficient at the main base because, you know, just the lumber's better. I guess you could mine here, but they're kind of exposed. But I do think they could stay at the expansion for now. Skeleton scouting. It's going to be a little bit mistimed. Not a big deal.
Summoning is complete.
And just all pressure. All just trying to keep the Archmage at bay as much as possible because we don't want him to... We saw, like, even though Todd didn't do a ton here, when he ran into the expansion, he just killed 3 Acolytes, right? Next time he runs in with more footmen with defend, maybe he can kill 4 or 5 Acolytes. Who knows? All delaying our ability to break upkeep early to go tier 3 immediately. So, you know, as much as we can, we want to be pressuring the Archmage and the footmen to keep them at bay, to delaying their, you know, their push into our gold mine, right? Tier 2 is done, so we're going to get Lich. Tier 3 tech and Slaughterhouse. XlorD happens to have the luxury of almost being able to afford all 3 at the same time. He's also, remember, 48 supply. This means he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 Fiends. His 4th is on the way. Hasn't started producing off this yet because he's not breaking upkeep yet. Yeah, and he's just going to do all the same things 120 did.
Summoning is complete.
Waiting for a little bit of lumber before going tier 3. Slaughterhouse coming up over here. And tier 3 should be underway soon. He could already have teched tier 3, but can't all be perfect, can we? Can't all be perfect. And there it is. Does he have +2 already on the way? No. I'm wondering, what did he buy there? He bought a town portal and a potion of mana as well, just to be safe. Again, these are luxuries that we can get before we're planning to break upkeep. Once the Slaughterhouse is up, then it's all hands on deck. We're going to spend everything on breaking upkeep as quickly as possible. But until then, we can get things like +1 on our Fiends. We can get things like Mana Pot, an extra Town Portal, because we sold ours in the early game. He's probably going to get +2. Maybe he'll get Burrow, Web, things like that. Maybe he'll get another Rod. These are things we can do before we break upkeep with that first statue. Again, this is all just delaying. Hey, what do you know? Todd, just like Chaemiko in the last game, does level 4 off the shop. XlorD doesn't really get any steals, but he does delay by pressuring it. Nothing new here. Nothing new at all. Do we have +2 on the way? There we go. +2 on the way.
Our forces are under attack.
What do you know? More luxury items, another Mana Pot, another Rod of Necromancy. These are all things we can afford to get because we're waiting to be tier 3. We're waiting to get 2 statues out. And look at that. Look at that. As soon as the slaughterhouse is done, just break upkeep. Forehead, just break upkeep. This is exactly what 120 did. It was 51 supply. He had broken upkeep right away. We don't have a big bank, but the important thing is we have enough income to be producing off these if we want to. By the time, eventually we will. By the time our production actually gets rolling, we'll have enough income to supplement the next round of production, right? Slaughterhouse can't wait too many things to do from it. Yeah, you need both statues and you need Destroyer form by the time your tier 3 is done. He actually canceled that? Did he cancel something? Did he lose something? Oh, he cancels this Fiend to instead get Burrow, I guess? Or did he lose a Ghoul? I don't know how he went below. No, he was 51, so he did lose a Ghoul somewhere. Did he kill a Ghoul? I think he killed a Ghoul. I'm restarting the replay to see. I think he killed a Ghoul. We're at 10 minutes. Interesting. He must have killed a Ghoul. Let's see.
Summon research complete.
Wait for it.
Summoning is
Wait for it.
complete.
Yep. Okay, he kills a Ghoul. And then he'll break upkeep with a second statue. How about that? Cash me outside. That's something 120 did not really worry about. He didn't care if he had to break upkeep. He just went straight for it as soon as he could. But remember, he also lost a lot more ghouls around this time. Remember, Chaemiko pushed into his base like a little bit before tier 3 was done, canceling his second slaughterhouse. Whereas XlorD has not lost a lot of ghouls this game.
Research complete.
Burrow was researched, and note 70 supply Ziggurat coming up.
Research complete.
And then we don't break upkeep with the first statue, but we'll break upkeep with the second statue and produce off both crypts. Thank you, XlorD. Producing off both crypts. Well done. Well done. Well done, well done, well done. And what do we have? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ghouls. We killed the 8th one. 120 at this timing had 1 ghoul left. He, in fact, had to build more ghouls.
Summoning.
He had to build more ghouls. More fiends coming out. Tier 3 is about to be done.
Complete.
And now look how sick this timing is. Look how sick this is. I want to keep an eye on the crypts. So our second statue's out. Tier 3 hits, Destroyer form right away. We're getting another Fiend, but Frenzy, because we have the luxury this time around to have 7 ghouls left over. So we're getting Frenzy, Destroyer form, more Fiends. We can get a 3rd hero, and we're also getting Backpack to backpack the orb across. So look how cool, how well this is going to line up. This is going to be unbelievable from XlorD. It's going to be ridiculous. He's still got 2 mana pots as well. A little bit of light pressure, but this isn't the actual push yet. Just some light pressure with 6 fiends, 5 fiends. But he's still waiting for Destroyer form. He's still waiting for his orb to be ferried across, right? Some light pressure. I think Todd pretty wisely actually got rifles this game because, again, the fact is you can't build knights until you're tier 3. So what are you supposed to build? You know they're going to be hitting as soon as you're both tier 3. And I can't build units until he's pushing me with 70 supply. You have to get some transitional unit. So you can get breakers, you can get priests, you can get rifles. This is about the army you can build. So Todd pretty smartly, I think, builds like 4 rifles while he's waiting for tier 3. I think that is the right way to do it. IMO. Because what else are you supposed to build? You could get, I guess you could go 2 Sanctum Breakers. But I think going for some rifles is nice. And look at all these. The Frenzy Ghouls ferrying across. Does this guy have the orb? Does this guy? This guy has the orb. So 7 Frenzy Ghouls, soon to be Frenzy, ferrying across. Destroyer form about to be done. More Fiends coming out. So our whole army right now is 2 statues, the Ghouls left over from the early game with Frenzy, and just as many Fiends as we could build pretty much up till this point. The orb is going to be transferred. We're going to pick up a 3rd hero, which is going to put us at, we're going to be at 64. It's going to put us at a solid 69 supply.
Research complete.
Note, same exact timing as last game, right? Around 12.5 minutes for 120 last game. This time Dark Ranger for XlorD. So this is the same timing on the push, but there's a town portal, there's Potion of Invulnerability, there's double mana pot, there's actual items on the Lich, and there's 7 Frenzy Ghouls. Look how sick this is. Look how unbelievable this is. Like, Todd's tier 3, it's the same exact timing that Chaemiko's was done. This is the same. It's all the same, right? Chaemiko's first knights were coming out around this time at the last game, too. There's nothing different. Paladin on the way, Knights on the way. Like, they've both just reached tier 3. The only difference is the Undead gets all their tier 3 stuff right away. You pick up a Tavern Hero, your orb is immediately purchased, you get Frenzy in transition, you get Destroyer form in transition, and then it pops by the time you're in their base. So the tier 3 for the Undead kicks in immediately because we're able to build Fiends throughout the entire game and statues throughout all of tier 2 and Ghouls throughout the entire game, whereas the human has to wait literally till they're tier 3 to build an Altar Hero, which takes 55 seconds, and to build Knights, which you literally need tier 3, you need a castle to get it. That's why this push is so terrifying. Because it doesn't matter if the techs are even. It doesn't matter if the techs are even. Because look at this army.
Research complete.
What if they make more towers at Expo to buy time? Then there's definitely a disadvantage to that in that, you know, you have to tower both the main base if you're going to tower the expansion, because then if you don't tower the main, they just push your main instead of the Expo. And, you know, the fact is, a 70 supply army isn't really afraid of a couple of extra towers. A 50 supply army is. But I mean, XlorD could easily, and this may be why 120 was going for 2 Slaughterhouse last game, he could easily get 3 Destroyers. Nice burrow dodge. And see, now the first couple Knights come out just like they did for Chaemiko. But this is just a ridiculous army. It's just ridiculous. And this is why I say I think everything lined up a lot better for XlorD this game. Everything lined up quite a bit better. He's even got 1 armor upgrade because he could afford it. That's why I think the macro in this game should be the benchmark. I think this is just pretty close to perfectly macroed. Pretty close. Did he mess anything up? Did he mess anything up? I don't know. I don't think he messed anything up. I think it was perfectly macroed. I think everything was very, very well done. He's even got his 80 supply Ziggurat on time. He had a 70 supply Ziggurat on time. I can't think of anything that XlorD is missing here. There were some openings. Should have sent those Ghouls to Todd's main base. That's definitely something he could have done for sure. That would have been sick. So yeah, I think there were some things XlorD could have done this game in terms of where he moved on the map when, and how he pressured in the early game, and how he kept his expansion safe throughout the game. But the macro side of things, the timing of the push, the units and army that he had for the push at the time he had them, I don't think there's much improvement to be made here. Everything else, maybe there's improvements. Like people are saying maybe he could have sent the Ghouls to a different place, maybe he could have crept differently. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think those are things that 120 did better than XlorD here. But in terms of just when and how efficiently he built the units that he built, I don't know. I don't know. And that's that for replay number 2. Well played indeed. And that's replay number 2. Pretty cool, right? So we sort of have two sides and we sandwich them together, and then therein lies the perfect game. I couldn't find a perfect example of this strategy. I wish I had one where we could sort of add the best parts of XlorD and the best parts of 1.2.0 and combine them into one replay. I wish that was a game I could have found, but I couldn't find that game. So I think they both those replays showed us something which is very integral to the strategy. No militia from Todd at the end, for sure. There may be some things Todd could have done to defend better, because we saw Chaemiko was very actually close to defending this push in the first replay. He was really close to doing it. But I mean, let's just also note, Chaemiko was very close to defending it, but that was like, it's 1.2.0 versus Chaemiko. I mean, obviously Chaemiko is going to come close to defending it. He's the best human in the entire world. Is that efficient on any other maps? We're going to look at another map right now. But with that being said, Echo Isles is the best map for this strategy. One sec, I have to restart my game. Echo Isles is the best map for this strat, so it's only going to get worse on other maps, right? But I think Tidehunters and Northern Isles are two other maps this can be very good on. But Echo Isles is definitely the best. Definitely, definitely. CH it would be good for because of just how the map is laid out and, of course, how difficult the expansion is for the human. The only downside of CH for this strat is it's difficult for the undead to creep their expansion as well. It was a great Lich Fast expand map. Yeah, that's another strat that I saw in Autumn Leaves quite often. Symphie play more tournaments? No, I wish. I wish. So we'll breeze through one more replay. What I want to do is just maybe what we'll do in this third replay. It's going to be 1.2.0 versus Chaemiko. Again, just like the first replay. It'll be on a different map. But maybe what I'll do is I'll periodically pause, and I'm going to ask you guys questions. And we'll see. One, we'll see if anybody has a different approach to what maybe I'm guessing would be the best play. But two, we'll just see if you guys can sort of get it. You guys have a decent grasp of the last two games we watched. Tidehunters would be cool. Yeah, Tidehunters is going to be the next replay we watch. So I'm going to periodically pause and ask you guys questions. It'll be like the check your understanding part of this episode. Right? This is the check your understanding replay on Tidehunters. So again, we'll watch it from 1.2.0's perspective. Let me load it up. So here we go into replay number 3. Oh, give it a sec, give it a sec, give it a sec. Oh, nice, and War 3 booster works now as well. So that means we can turn this off. Very good, very good. And I'll make sure that the sound is all good. I just restarted my game, so there we go. Show us how it loses and analyze the mistakes, please. I could probably find a replay of this losing. I would have to look through my replay folder, though. But I could tell you right now, the way this loses is based off of either the push fails and then the human plays really well and holds in the late game. So either the human's going to win at like the 25-minute mark because they're going to hold this 12.5-minute push, and then everyone's going to try to maybe take a third base on other maps. And then, you know, you're going to transition to Banshees. The human's going to get a big army with like frag sharp mortar teams, high-level tri-hero. And then it's just your typical really late-game macro game. That's how the human's going to beat you if that push fails. Another way the human's going to beat you is the initial harass is going to go poorly for you as the undead. And the human's going to easily have an opportunity to just attack into your expansion and like delay your mining, delay your tech, kill your acolytes, slow down all the mining. Right, that's going to be how you can lose with this strategy. And we're going to see 1.2.0 almost lose in this game, in fact. A couple of those ways. Do I play? Sometimes. A little bit. So nothing new here, right? Nothing new here. It's all the same. Same build order again. Same build order. I would say Chaemiko's an amazing player. He's not Infi or TH, which is sad because Infi and TH are sort of like the Lin and the Moon and the Happy of human, but he's still very good.
Summoning is complete.
He's definitely like the Fly of human,
Summoning
or the
is
120 of undead, or the Laliat of Night Elf. He's definitely that ability. He's just not that one step higher of like, you know, mastermind of the game, right? So yeah, he's like a slight tier below the top players. Acolyte again killed a critter and just gonna run across to scout, all the same stuff. One thing the Acolyte on this map can do is maybe block a footman pull at the lab, because there's a golem here as well, so that's similar to the mercenary camp, but it's not a mercenary camp. So nothing new, nothing new. Creep route's also going to be slightly different, but as was proven to us on Echo Isles, there's always improvements to be made to the creep route, even when it's 120 doing it, because I think XlorD's creep route was just objectively better.
Our forces are under attack.
Yeah, I think Sokka is very good against undead in particular, whereas Chaemiko probably has better every other matchup. Maybe Sokka's better against Night Elf as well, on the right day. So we're going to be creeping this orange camp. Goes first round on the footman, but fails. A little bit inefficient. Acolyte continues to scout. And we're just going to build ghouls. This footman might force a Nerubian, but the cool thing about playing ghoul opener is this footman doesn't guarantee force a Nerubian, like it may do if we're playing Ted Fiends, because we can always send a ghoul back. But he is going to build Nerubian because he wants to use his ghouls to creep and pressure. No surprises there. One slight difference on, I guess, this map is 120 doesn't sell his town portal, which may be because he's creeping one camp. He's not immediately going to the expansion right away. He delays it a little bit, so maybe he can afford to not sell the town portal. Maybe that's why. Although I'm not entirely sure why. The Acolyte and the Skeleton now scout where the expansion is going to be. He knows that the whole army needs to be here. This needs to be all hands on deck because this expansion is so difficult to creep. So he's just able to build the gold mine even before the Nerubian, and the ghouls can finish up the creep camp. This is why Tidehunters can be a really good map for this, because you can really creep this expansion with like 5 ghouls. It's really easy. In the meantime, the Death Knight's going to go across to start pressuring, start the harassing, start the offense as a good defense, so to speak. I feel like selling the town portal on Echo with XlorD allowed him to build the necropolis. For sure. That could be another argument why selling the town portal is always good, and maybe an argument as to why 120 doesn't always do that. Because he doesn't like building the necropolis that early.
Our forces are under attack.
So we might not be here in time with the Death Knight to actually like steal anything, but we remember what's important about this pressure, which is keeping the Archmage here. And look how far the Archmage and the Footman have to run to be able to pressure the expansion, right? So this is almost a bad expansion positioning for Chaemiko, but that goes back to my earlier point at the beginning of the episode where having multiple strategies as the undead, the human can't counter all of them at the same time, so maybe this expansion is better when Chaemiko plays against the standard happy style of Ted Fiends, but worse when you play against this ghoul fast expansion style because you can't pressure as easily as the human. So it's very interesting, very interesting. 5 ghouls on the left, Death Knight on the right. No way Chaemiko could run across the map right now, because if he did, look how exposed this is. All the peasants would be killed. Building some Acolytes, getting Nerubian up. 120 is going to make a mistake here, as we all do. We all do, right? What is the mistake right now? What's kind of the mistake? Could be argued that this is a mistake. And it's easy to make this mistake because it looks like when you come in here as the undead, you're like, oh, I got lots of mana on my Death Knight, all my ghouls are healthy. Yeah, the DK is a mistake, but I think just overall, yeah, this DK, this is a mechanical error, but a strategical error could be said, I don't know if he necessarily needed to just run in here when the whole army was here. This is a level 3 Archmage. This is 2 Water Elementals right now with good duration. I don't think running in here is ever going to end efficiently, let's say, for 120. Yes, he might kill some peasants. He's not going to kill all 5. And he's almost certainly going to lose a couple of ghouls, if not his Death Knight, if not his Town Portal. I don't think running in here against the whole army being here is wise. I don't think it's going to end well no matter what. And it's certainly not going to end well here. And hindsight is 2020, but I just don't know. I think just 120 sitting on the perimeter here and maybe running in and coiling a peasant, summoning skeletons, trying to kill a peasant or 2 with just the Death Knight would have been fine. But running in here with everything and just going full balls to the wall when we have to remember we need to just, our main priority needs to be to keep our own expansion safe, I think this is just a strategical mistake, if not this being a mechanical one. Because this is definitely just a mechanical mistake. Taking so much damage. And whoop, another one. And we have to TP up. Yeah, and see, now that we've Town Portaled out, we kind of, like, what do you guys think we have to do now? What are we forced into doing as the undead player here? This is almost a game-losing mistake. Somebody asked in the chat, how can you lose as the undead? This is how you can lose. Because this ghoul is very, very low. This ghoul is about to take a ton of damage. So these ghouls are pretty much out of the harass game. They can't do it any longer. Now, 120 is almost forced to, like... Yeah, creep small camps and play scared. Yeah, he's got to try to get level 3 Death Knight. So he could maybe creep this right away would be decent. What he's going to do is actually creep this. But really, the only way that 120 would be able to keep this expansion safe, or to keep, say, how about his main base safe, is to actually just blindly run towards the expansion again. And even if he does that, Chaemiko might already be, like, here by the time he does that. So really, by the time 120 Town Portal's back with all of his ghouls as well, there's no way he can be the aggressor any longer. He is now on the defensive by default, just based on the positioning of both the armies. Because Chaemiko's just going to run across the map now. And there's nothing 120 can do to stop Chaemiko from running across the map. So this is very bad. This is very, very bad.
Our forces are under attack.
Most players would lose right now. Most of them.
Summoning is complete.
As we saw from XlorD last game, though... Oh, that's a mistake as well. As we saw from XlorD last game, having level 3 Death Knight can help quite a bit versus the pressure, so he's going to try to get level 3 Death Knight. Also builds the graveyard. Right? Builds the graveyard before the tech so he can get the second tower over here. Yeah, you need level 3 Death Knight, and we'll talk about why you need level 3 Death Knight. That's why 120 is really prioritizing it. And in fact, he doesn't quite prioritize it enough. Like, he should just kill this turtle right now. I'm not sure. I think he wants to get back and, like, heal because he saw the Archmage in the middle. Yeah, he saw the Archmage. I think that's why. But really, I mean, he really needs level 3 badly. He really needs level 3 badly here. So I'm surprised to see him not at least leave the Skelly and the Ghoul here to clean it up. Yeah, I think he just wanted to heal up. So now this is what happens when we don't pressure the human. This is what happens. And this is why this mistake is, this strategy is very volatile. Because if the human is ever able to be in your face like this, like how... What are we defending with right now? What are we defending with? We have 4 ghouls here. 5 ghouls, all of which are useless. He's got a greater mana. He's got footmen in our face. Yes, we have a Nerubian. But now we're not going to be able to tech, that's for sure. Because we can't tech when we still risk losing Acolytes. It's very bad. Very difficult. Whereas, let's say, for instance, right now, we were still able to be aggressive. Like, let's say we had 5 ghouls right here. A possibility, right? Let's say we had 4 ghouls right here, and Chaemiko did this sort of play, even if our Death Knight was still low. Now what we do is we send these 4 ghouls here, and what's an Arcane Tower going to do? He's going to lose all these peasants, he's going to have to call militia from the main base, and before you know it, we're both taking tons of damage. And then the game is complete chaos. Who does complete chaos favor? I don't know. It might favor Chaemiko, it might favor 120, but definitely when we're trying to play a nice, clean game based on a strategy we're trying to learn, we don't want the game to be complete chaos for either side. So who knows? But that's definitely a possibility if we still were able to have ghouls here. And our Death Knight here, for instance. This expansion would take way more damage than our main base would currently. But that's not a possibility. 120 with Balls of Steel just tax. Just tax. So we almost certainly need to get level 3 Death Knight somehow. And note, 120 actually starts sending ghouls down to try to force Chaemiko back. He's thinking, okay, I'll send 3 ghouls down to try to, eventually he's going to have to react to it because I'm going to kill all these peasants mining. But then he thinks like, oh, maybe it'll take too long, I think was his mindset. And by the time they get down there and start killing peasants, Chaemiko's already going to have, like, ran over me. So he's like, I need another solution. So let's see what his solution is to defend this. Which I'm totally willing to admit most players would probably lose right here. I would lose right here. Let's see what his solution is. So he puts some damage on the Archmage, but it's going to be difficult to do much with that because we don't have level 2 coil.
Our forces are under attack. Summoning is complete.
So he's going to try and kill a footman. If he can kill a footman, he can get level 3. See, and just look how bad ghouls are against level 2 water elementals. This is why we never want to fight in our main base. So we managed to kill a footman to get level 3. And what are we going to do when we get level 3? The only thing we can do. And what's the only thing we can do, guys? If you're an undead player, you must know this. I think Deuce already said it. It's only the one thing we can do against this sort of pressure. Just coil AM. Yeah, exactly. So all we can hope in this sort of position, and you're going to get in this position often, where your harass fails, you're forced to TP out, the human is able to get the jump, the head start on you, and he's in your base. The only thing you can do is hope that you're level 3. Hope that you've managed to get level 3, which, 120 crept 2 camps, 1, 2, and he even started creeping a 3rd. It's quite easy to get level 3 Death Knight, given you're creeping 2 camps and then harassing with ghouls. It's not too difficult. So, if you're level 3, you get level 3, just throw every single coil on the Archmage. And this is going to actually work here. It's miraculous. Just right-click the Archmage forehead. And in fact, Chaemiko's going to make such a big mistake here. Look. Such a big mistake here that all of a sudden it's a pretty equal game. Despite us losing a Ziggurat, a bunch of ghouls, our tech was, I think, delayed a bit. 3 Zigs here, because remember we lost a Ziggurat in the main base.
Summoning is complete.
And now we're back to where we were before. The important thing is, for 120, he didn't take economic damage. The Acolytes were safe. Yes, he lost a Ziggurat, but the Acolytes have been safe the whole time, and the tech timing is still good. I think 120 could have tried to meet Chaemiko before he got his base. Yeah, he could have maybe tried that and tried to delay as long as he could. He definitely could have delayed Chaemiko literally being in his base, but... And then we go back to the same as always. We're going to get the Necropolis at the expansion in case we lose Acolytes here, which 120 will. We're going to get Spirit Tower, second Crypt for more Fiends. We know we have some time because the Archmage was dead, although I do think Chaemiko Tavern revives it here, but... Oh yeah, that's actually a really good point. Really good point. So someone said in the chat, which makes sense, he said, we could maybe try to interrupt the Archmage before it gets to our base. Right? So after 120 Town Portals, this is so cool. After 120 Town Portals, maybe we could interrupt the Archmage and delay them pushing our base. Then someone else in the chat says, he was trying to get level 3 though. Because you need level 3 to defend this pressure. Right? Pretty cool. So he actually did need level 3. So he almost... I think 120 did do the best play here, given the mistake. He immediately got level 3 as soon as he could, without losing his Death Knight, and then he had to defend his main base because he was almost forced to because he had to creep a single camp. So I think there's validity to both those, but I do think you can only do one or the other to an extent. But that's cool. I just noticed that's what you guys said because I didn't really think that through. Like, oh yeah, it makes sense that you try to interrupt it, but then if he interrupts, he can't get level 3. If he gets level 3, he can't interrupt. Catch 22, you're kind of screwed regardless. Luckily, 120 is really good. But again, Chaemiko is just so good at this. Like, he knows what to do. This is exactly what Chaemiko's supposed to do. Continuously pressure. Because although he's losing footmen, what Chaemiko knows he needs to do is delay the tech, delay the economy, and make sure that when 120 hits tier 3 and goes for this big push, that he's already prepared for it. Because remember, if we just allow the undead as the human player, I'm sort of switching roles here, but just in passing, in case you're wondering. If we allow the undead player to just macro up for free, and we also macro up for free as the human, and we just go la-da-da-da-da, like we just are both allowed to do whatever we want, the undead is just going to steamroll us at tier 3 because of the whole, we need tier 3 to build knights. We don't have an army until we're literally tier 3, whereas the undead is pumping fiends the whole time and pumping statues the whole time and grabs an orb immediately. So this is why Chaemiko's doing this, and this is why it's so good that he's doing this. Just constantly throwing footmen into the undead base to try to delay this big push as much as he can because he needs to. It's really good. But still, nothing changes for 120. He just needs to defend. Still got 2 crypts. He's getting his slaughterhouse. Once the lich is out, these footmen become much less effective. For Chaemiko here, this is all just time delaying the tier 3, though. And a lot of footmen are going down. We're taking some losses if we are the human here. But it's really good because the tier 3 is later. So remember that 12.5 minute mark that we were pushing at in Game 1 and Game 2? That 12.5 minute mark might be 13.5 minutes now. Maybe it's 13 minutes, 13 minutes and 15 seconds. And remember, by the time the undead is typically pushing, that's when the human is typically building their first couple of knights. Maybe their 3rd knight. Right? Their 3rd and 4th night, I should say. But in this case, maybe the undead's pushing when the human has 8 flying machines and, you know, their 5th night on the way. Who knows? You know. Maybe the paladin's already out. So these differences from Chaemiko make it quite a big difference. That's why this was such a big mistake earlier. It seems little. He only lost 1 ghoul, and he only took a little bit of damage and had a town portal. It seems like just a small mistake, like, whoops, I'll just TP out and I'll start creeping. But really, this could cost him the game. And look, the footman again pressuring. It's so sick. Again, the Archmage pressuring.
Our town is under attack.
Is the Mountain King out, by the way? The Mountain King's out. Most cases, the Mountain King would want to creep, of course. You want level 3 Mountain King. He could be creeping. But what does Chaemiko do? He's just pressuring into the base. This, again, just, you know, reinforces the point of we need to keep the human at bay, or else this is what happens to us if the human's playing very well. What's up, OC Drummer? Yep, you're going to get fast expanded on a whole lot more. Here we go.
Our town is under attack. Our forces are under attack.
Spirit Tower and Nerubian help out a ton, though, for this. Also, the Staff of Teleportation helps out a ton, because he's staffed back here.
Our town is under attack. Our forces are under attack.
Alright, so this is quite a bit of adversity for 120. But he's remaining calm. He loses a Fiend here to creeps. It happens to the best of us. But he's just using the Staff of Teleportation. He's relying on the towers, right?
Our forces
But
are
still,
under
nothing
attack.
changes, right? Nothing changes. Mountain King goes down. So again, some losses taken. What may be different now? What may be different now between the last 2 replays in terms of the macro for 120, though? What is something different? Sapper Expo? Well, neither of the labs are crept right now. What might be different? What's something we saw from both XlorD and 120 in game 1 and 2 that we might not be able to see this game as a result of the damage we've taken as the undead? Does anyone know? Can anyone name one thing that maybe we won't have? That maybe we'll skip out on because we've taken so much damage? Does anyone know? Does anyone know? Ghouls. Well, we're still going to build the same amount of ghouls. 8, 9, or 10. Typically around 10. No, we still want destroyers. We definitely still want destroyers. Frenzy. We're still going to want Frenzy, assuming we have ghouls left over. Banshee. No, Banshees will come later. No luxury. That's a great way to put it. Items, yes. No luxury things that we mentioned in replay number 2. What are some of the luxury things? Remember, XlorD had 2-1 attack upgrades. He had Burrow. He had a mana potion on both heroes. He rebought his town portal, and he bought a potion of invulnerability. Lots of... That's... Let's see... 350, 500, 800. It's about 1,300 gold XlorD invested into things that could be luxury. 2-1 upgrades, maybe not a luxury, but still 1-0 is going to skip that. Yeah, but 2-1 upgrades, Burrow, Mana Pot, Invuln Pot, Town Portal, all these sorts of things. Maybe Burrow won't be a luxury because it's so cheap, and you're still waiting to break upkeep regardless. Maybe not Burrow on that list, but definitely the potions and all that stuff. That's what 120 is going to be forced into skipping this game. What he's not going to skip out on is Fiend production, a third hero. Maybe he does skip a third hero this game. Maybe he skips a third hero. But Fiend production, Destroyer, Frenzy, Orb, he's not going to skip on those sorts of things because that's what the real strength behind the push is. It's the numbers, it's the Orb, it's the Destroyer timing to break the towers, it's the Frenzy to maybe pressure the peasants, it's the Fiend numbers, the Gabagool. It's, you know what I mean. You see. So no, the Fiends are 0-0, and if I look at the graveyard, there's probably no attack upgrades on the way. What do you know? There isn't. Whereas already 2-0 was on the way. Already we had double Mana Pot, Potion of Vulnerability still, and Town Portal rebought because maybe 1-2-0 is feeling the pressure and he doesn't want to get caught out of position, but no double Mana Pot, no extra Rod. I think this is still the second Rod. This Skeleton Scout's going to be quite nice. And see, still no upgrades, nothing like that. It's all just exactly what 120 needs. There's redone. We'll keep an eye and see if he gets Frenzy here. Yeah, he will get Frenzy because he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ghouls left. Yeah, he has 6 ghouls left, which is, I would say about maybe 4 or 5 would be the threshold. Right? 4 or 5, probably the threshold for whether or not you get Frenzy. Destroyer form still. 120 could also afford a third hero if he wanted. I don't think he gets one this game. Maybe it's because he doesn't... No, he has the Ziggurat for it, so I don't remember. Maybe he gets a third hero. I would get a third hero here. I would definitely get a Dark Ranger right here. He's staffing back to buy the Orb. Did he buy items on the Lich? Maybe he did. Who knows? He gets the Orb. And actually, this push this game is pretty well timed. Still, 12.5 minutes, remember. These skeletons get a very crucial scout on mass griffins. But still, guys, still, we need tier 3 to build griffins. We need tier 3 to build griffins. So he's got 3 out. He's got number 4, 5, and 6 on the way. But we need tier 3 to build them. It's just like the knights. It's no different. It's no different. How many fiends do we have? 1, 2, 3. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 fiends. And web on the way. Web only takes 30 seconds of research. We can forget web and see air and then get it immediately. It's no problem. We have equal amount of fiends to griffins, which is really good. And we have destroyers we can morph. We have decently leveled heroes. Like, it's just like the knights. It's It's just like them. You need tier 3 to build them. For the same reason we're strong here as we were last game. But remember, this is with taking an extreme amount of damage this game, right? Like, this is not at all the position we would hope to be in if we're 1-2-0 here. But he's going to make it work because it's a really good strat. 12 minutes again. And he's going to creep one camp just to allow it to be 12.5 minutes because we like things to be precise here. You see? Perfect farm blacksmith positioning. Quite good, eh? That's quite good. Quite good. He was also waiting for web to be done. That's why I decided to creep one more camp. Oh, hit my mic, sorry. But double destroyers get morphed because the SimCity was so good, and destroyers happen to be quite good against griffins as well because griffins can't fight back. And this is it. What do you know? Griffins against 6 fiends with web is, you know. Chaemiko could have definitely taken this fight better, but this game wasn't meant to be the perfect example of how both players should play. It's just meant to reinforce what we already know, right? And 1-2-0, I think, only loses a destroyer here. I think that's it. I think he only lost a destroyer. I think that's all he lost. Still 0-0 fiends, by the way. Right, still no mana pots. He already lost a fiend. Okay, he lost a fiend and a destroyer. Fiend and a destroyer. Would Chaemiko have won this game had he gone for a more standard army? Would he have won had he gone just for inner fire rifles with 2-0? Probably. But he went Griffins, and that's how 1-2-0 is actually able to win despite the awful early and mid game. And of course, as we all know, Undead Zimba, right guys? GG will be called. How's that? How's that for you guys? How's that? How's that? Did we all learn something? I learned something. So really, at the core of this strategy, all it is you just get an expansion up as early as you can as an undead player, and then you're still just going tier 3 and hitting a tier 3 timing with destroyers, with fiends, with orb, with most times tri-hero, and this time with a couple of extra frenzy ghouls. It's the same thing. You're just getting tier 3 and pushing their expansion with 2 statues, a bunch of fiends. It's the same thing. We just have an expansion behind it. We still get to go the same heroes. We still get to use the same hotkeys. We still have to pressure the entire game. Important point. Just as though we were playing one base. In fact, we may even be more passive on one base. We have to be more aggressive on 2 bases. Because we need to keep our own expansion safe, or else what happened in Game 3 to 1-2-0 will happen to us, and we will lose to Chaemiko if he does that to us. Sasonic with the 250 bits says I learned something. I'm glad. Thank you, Sasonic. Then 1-2-0 lost the series 1-3 because he probably played some dumb strategy that wasn't Death Knight fast expansion. Am I right? 1-2-0 sucks. Why do we even analyze his games? Just kidding. He's really good. And that's that. That was today's episode. Now, I would love... This is one of those strats that's probably been updated a little bit because these replays are kind of old. A couple months old, in fact. So, if there was some more up-to-date replays, I would love to see them. If anyone has any games, I just couldn't find any more up-to-date replays. But if there, maybe in DreamHack we'll see some of this strategy. Maybe in some ESL Cups we've seen this strategy. If anyone has any games, or I would love to see, I want to see 1-2-0 do this strategy, right now. And I guarantee you there's going to be slight differences to how he does it. If XlorD were to do it right now, I would guarantee you there would be slight differences to how he does it. Put it into practice? Well, that's for you guys to do, not for me. I just tell you guys the order of things. You guys have to do the hard part and actually play the game. Right? You see? What time is it there, Carson? It's 3:14 p.m. 3:14 p.m. I will say, though, I do think this is easier than standard play, than the way Happy plays. I think this strategy is easier. So you say put it into practice. Yes, difficult to do, a hard matchup for Undead, admittedly. I think this strat is easier than the Pitlord one-base push. This is where I mean to unveto Echo Isles. If you're an Undead player, you should play Echo Isles. Yeah, it's a good map. It's a good map. Is it bad in other matchups? I think Echo Isles is across the board pretty good for Undead. It's very good against Orc and against Human. If you play this style. One base against two base versus Human is very difficult, but two base. Yeah. But again, like I said, it will work on Tidehunters, and it would work on Northern Isles as well. And maybe you could work it out on Concealed Hill if you could figure out how you can creep your expansion that early. Pitlord one base push. Is it really good in your opinion when playing on a decent level? Yeah. That's why Happy does it almost exclusively. Maybe not the Pitlord, he does Dark Ranger third quite often, but the one base Ted Fiends play. There's a reason why the best Undead probably of all time does it exclusively. It's just very execution based. The micro is very important. You can't take any damage in the early game. Like if you as the Undead playing one base lose one Fiend, you've already pretty much lost at the top level in the early game, a lot of the time. So it's all about the execution, whereas this strategy, still execution-based, but it's more execution on the macro side of things than the micro side of things, shall we say. All right. That's a pretty good length for an episode. 2 hours and 10 minutes. I think that's good. That's good. That's good, despite a 30-minute intro. Who knew? Who knew I could do it, guys? Who knew I could keep it under 6 hours long? So, there'll be no episode next week because DreamHack, but keep an eye out for some of the strategies we've covered throughout DreamHack, and maybe we'll do an updated look with some new, fresh replays. I love it when there's big tournaments because that makes this show much more enjoyable to do because we get to, like, hey, this game was played yesterday. So, I'm definitely going to be covering some games from DreamHack, and, you know, make sure you guys watch it throughout the week, and keep an eye on any cool strategies, and then if you can always join the Discord and let me know, hey, there's this cool strat. Maybe you should check it out, and if there is, I'll make sure to get those replays, and we can maybe learn a thing or two together. What can Hue do better versus two-base Undead? I feel like it's so hard for them to stop their expand if they decide to do it. I've seen some replays where the humans just scout it and play one base, which you're, of course, you're at a auto disadvantage if you decide to just play one base as the human against Undead, because there's a reason in the first place humans go for an expansion as the standard play, right? It's because human wants two base against one against Undead. So you're giving up that sort of strategical advantage in doing that, but I have seen humans just play one base and just pressure the Expo and hope the Undead overcommits. That's a good way to do it. But I'm not entirely sure. Of course, trying to be the one being aggressive as the human is good. You get level 3 Archmage, and then you try to get across the map, and you try to harass, just like Chaemiko did on Tidehunters. And then also maybe going Rifle Caster instead of trying to go Tier 3 Knight, Griffin, Mortar Team, Flying Machine, whatever. I think going Rifle Caster, and then when you hit Tier 3, you get a Paladin, Orb, and Inner Fire instead. Might be a good way to deal with this sort of a push. What's up, Bro Rush? Thanks for the 100 bits. How you doing, man? Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. From the human's perspective, I don't know. There's a reason why I'm covering the strat, because I think it's really good for Undead. But there's definitely things human can do, and I think Chaemiko shows a pretty good understanding of how to beat it. But we're just not watching replays where Chaemiko beat it today, right? How is it better to push Undead Expo? What do you mean? We just talked about that for 2 hours. Or do you mean playing one base? Do you mean playing one base, or do you mean with this strategy, the human pushing the undead expo. Oh, one base for the strat. Oh, yeah, I don't think playing one base versus undead is good. But, again, if there's many cases where when the undead's playing CryptLord or Death Knight expansion or Lich expansion, because the reason why playing one base is not good as the human and you're trying to break the undead's expansion is because if you tech and the undead scouts it, and then you're trying to stop their expansion, what if they just cancel their Haunted Goldmine and tech themselves? Then you're in a one base game and the undead's totally happy with that. Where playing one base as a human can be good against things like CryptLord is if the undead chooses to continue trying to expand and you're able to just pressure them and pressure them and pressure them. Whereas if they just say, whatever, you got me, I give up my expansion, we'll play one base, the undead's going to be happy with that, especially if they're opening with Death Knight. I hope that answers your question. So I don't think it is good for the human, but it can work if the undead just continues to try to expand, which most often CryptLord players will, because CryptLord is best paired with an expansion, right? In my opinion, this is kind of stuff I haven't looked into a ton, or, you know, neither of these races are my main race, but that's sort of my view on it, at least. When undead is when human is forced to cancel expo or lose expo, it's already lost. When undead loses expo, meh. Well, I'm more thinking like you're building your haunted gold mine as the undead. You have your scout acolyte still alive. You see they're not going to creep their expansion. That's weird. You scout their main base and you see they're teching. Your haunted gold mine's only 50% done and you just cancel it. Then what have you committed as the undead? You've attempted a haunted gold mine and you've built a Nerubian tower, which is most likely not going to be killed for quite a while. So you've invested like, 300 gold or so. So yes, it's not great, but as long as you're not like building a haunted gold mine and a necropolis and a second crypt and 2 ziggurats and a graveyard and delaying your tech by 3 minutes, and then as soon as the human comes in with one rifle, you just unsummon everything. Not that, but if the undead just goes, I'll cancel my haunted gold mine. Then I think the undead's fine with that. By the way, you see Grubby's patch note video? I did not yet. I'll have to check it out. But yeah, I hope to see the strategy more often. And the cool thing is, 120 plays the strat a lot. So we'll see it more, which is cool. We'll get to see it more. We'll get to see how humans decide to counter it, the top humans. And we'll see how 120 makes adjustments with it. Because I'm sure there's things he does differently now, like I said. Maybe what I'll do, Fox, is I'll do that tomorrow, because tomorrow I'm casting Gold Cup, and there's going to be undoubtedly some downtime. So maybe if you guys remind me tomorrow when I'm casting Gold Cup, we can take a look at them. But for today, I think the show's been long enough, and I got some stuff to do. But tomorrow I'll be back, and maybe we'll take a look at them tomorrow on stream. That could be fun. I think it's good. All right, that's it. Thank you for the questions, guys. Appreciate you guys watching. That was fun. Hope you learned something. And any feedback in the comments of the YouTube, in the Discord, the Back to Warcraft Discord, in my email, carson@backtowarcraft.com, is always appreciated. Ways I can improve the show. Strategies you'd like to see in the future. Maybe things I got wrong. Let me know. Always appreciate that. Always appreciate that. Enjoy D2? Enjoy New World, you mean. But I do actually legitimately have some work to do before I play New World for the rest of the night. That's not why I'm ending before looking at Grubby's patch notes. You almost got me, though. You almost got me. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow for 4 Players Gold Cup. All right? 10 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. EST, 7 p.m. CEST. Be there, be square. See you guys later. Bye-bye.